This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business. It all begins in 15 seconds right after this word from our podcast sponsor.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Here comes Birdtown on the outside, and Elwell fights back on the rail. Birdtown with Elwell. Here comes Yell with a late run. It's Birdtown beginning to draw away. It's going to be Birdtown as they come to the finish. Birdtown upsets in the Oaks. It's Birdtown takes it by 5.
Empire Maker is giving it all. Funny side trying to pull up. The upset here. 12-1 coming down to the line. And the gutsy gelding Funny side has won the 129th Kentucky Derby.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires.
They're coming down to the finish. Chapel Royal. Action this day on the outside. Now in front. Minister Eric second, and they're coming down to the finish. And it's going to be action this day from way out of it. Wins the battle of attrition that was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile this year. They're coming into the final furlong, and it's going to be Mineshaft. Mineshaft, routinely brilliant to win here at Belmont Park once again. He has won the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and he has done it with style. And pleasantly perfect, trying to muddle them down with 100 yards to go. They're down there on the outside, and they're coming down to the finish, and it is pleasantly perfect. Man, oh man, what a day. Pleasantly perfect wins by 2.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Well, there's only one Tom Durkin, isn't there? Fantastic. Just a few of the memorable sounds from some of the top moments of 2003, 20 years ago, and that is significant here this morning, and I'll tell you more about that right after I say good morning and welcome to the Equine Forum presented by Twin Spires. It is post time for the show that launched a network right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron in the backstretch. Happy to have you back in the starting gate with me once again this morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 216, XM 204, affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, and streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you are accessing your podcasts. Well, in 2003, Hall of Fame trainer Richard Mandella had a day he will never forget. And you just heard a couple of those calls in our open this morning. He saddled 4 Breeders' Cup winners, including Pleasantly Perfect in the Breeders' Cup Classic. But it was Mineshaft who was named Horse of the Year in 2003. Action This Day was the 2-year-old champion. Half Bridled was the champion 2-year-old filly. Kentucky Derby winner Funny Side was voted champion 3-year-old male. And Kentucky Oaks heroine Birdtown was champion 3-year-old filly. The brilliant Azeri took home the second of her 3 consecutive older female titles. High Chaparral paired up back-to-back championships in the male turf horse division, and Islington was named the Eclipse champion turf female. All of those occurring 20 years ago in what was an extremely memorable year in thoroughbred racing. And I bring all of this up because it was in April of 2003 that I first met a gentleman by the name of Pete Coulis, who was hosting a daily racing show every morning from the Keeneland racing office. At that time, I was working in the racing office as an assistant to Barb Borden, who was the horse identifier. She is now the chief state steward here in Kentucky. Pete asked me to join him on the show for an interview and talk about what it meant to be a horse identifier and what my role was at Keeneland. And afterwards, he asked if I had any interest in being his co-host on a weekly Saturday morning program, which was airing on an AM station here in Lexington, Kentucky. Well, that was, of course, 20 years ago. And 2 decades later, I'm extremely thankful to be able to say that I can be with you every single Saturday morning here on HRRN, doing what I love and talking about the greatest game in the world. Coming up at 9:40, I'm going to commemorate this 20-year anniversary of me starting on radio by welcoming longtime horseman Jack Smith to the program. Jack has been involved with the sport on a multitude of levels for many years, including his Jack Smith Thoroughbred operation. And I couldn't think of anybody better than Jack to invite for that segment because of the fact that Jack was the very first person I interviewed on my very first show, sitting alongside Pete 20 years ago. And 20 years later, I get a chance to talk racing with Jack again. It's going to be really cool. In other news, there's this thing called the Kentucky Derby happening about an hour west of where I'm sitting right now in Lexington. That'll happen in Louisville, Kentucky next Saturday. We are 7 days, 10 hours, 39 minutes, and 55 seconds away from the Run for the Roses. And today is a massive day of works for the Oaks and Derby hopefuls. Their final major work before the big dance. This is the final hurdle they have to get past, if you will. One more big work, and then the rest of it is just maintenance and keeping those horses happy over the course of the next 7 days. Already this morning we've seen the Brad Cox contingent on the track, verifying Hit Show, Angel of Empire, and Jace's Road. Champion Forte and Tappet Trice, the Bluegrass winner, were out just a short time ago. Confidence game for Keith DeSormo. Oaks contender Mimi Kikuchi just left the racetrack a few moments ago. Churchill Downs publicity manager Kevin Kerstein is going to join me live from Churchill Downs coming up in just a little bit at 8:35 Eastern. Do not miss that interview. He's going to give you an update on all of the works taking place beneath the Twin Spires this morning. He'll tell you his thoughts on who worked well, maybe who's not handling the track the way you would like them to be handling it. I'll talk to Kevin about that at 8:35. 9 o'clock Eastern, the Pontiff of the Pick Ford, Jude Feld, will join me to share his thoughts on this year's Oaks and Derby fields. He'll look ahead to next week. He's also going to look ahead to our Derby countdown shows, which he'll be part of starting on Tuesday morning, this coming Tuesday. We'll get you ready for the Derby Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning with the Derby countdown presented by Hillendale and Alapa. Those come your way Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, and you won't want to miss those. The interviews with jockeys, trainers, owners, handicappers, breeders. You'll hear from everybody over the course of the 2 hours, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning. By the way, a different Sirius XM channel for those shows than you're listening to right now. So make this note. Sirius 218 XM 202 is where you will find the Derby Countdown program. So if you come to the channel you're listening to now and you don't hear it, Sirius 218 XM 202. You can also stream it worldwide on our website at horseracingradio.net. So a lot of ways to listen to those programs and get ready for the Oaks and for the Derby. Poll question this morning is, as you would imagine, Derby related. What is your favorite way to bet the Kentucky Derby? I want to know how you prefer to bet the Kentucky Derby. Win, place, show. Do you like to do an exacta, trifecta, or a superfecta? I'll give you those four choices. If maybe there's another way you like to play the Derby, let me know. What is your favorite way to bet the Kentucky Derby? Win, place, and show? Exacta, trifecta, superfecta. You can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on our Facebook page to cast your vote and let me know your thoughts on the best way or your favorite way to play the Kentucky Derby. James Scully going to join me at 10 o'clock Eastern with this week's Twin Spires Triple Play. It is, of course, opening day of the Churchill Spring Meet. Keeneland wrapping up a fantastic meet yesterday. The racing now shifts westward to Churchill. And first post, 6 o'clock tonight beneath the Twin Spires. James Scully will join me with the Twin Spires Triple Play. He'll take a look at a couple races from Churchill. He has a selection from Oaklawn that he's going to throw in there, too, so you won't want to miss that at 10 o'clock. Kurt Becker will have his Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20, and Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin will be with me for I Ask, They Answer at 10:30 Eastern, and it should be highly entertaining. I've got some really fun topics for the boys coming up at 10:30. This is an Unsung Hero week, and in the second hour of the program, you'll hear this edition of Unsung Heroes presented by Woodbine Entertainment. This week's guest, Kim Smith, who is the founder and executive director of Second Stride, a organization that gives racehorses a second career. And you'll get a chance to hear from her coming up in the second hour of today's program. When I come back, though, going to kick everything off as I do on this show every single year with a visit from Lori Douglas and Bethany Walton from Farmpaint. They'll tell you about a few tips to get your farm your fences, your property ready for the summer season. That's coming up next. This is the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires on HRRN.
Race to Twin Spires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twin Spires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twin Spires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Here with Joe Brown Nicholson of Nicholson Insurance Agency. Joe, what would be a common misunderstanding between an insured and the insurance company?
Mike, one issue is a policy condition that requires notification when an insured animal becomes sick or injured.
Do you mean in life-threatening situations?
Not just then, but if a veterinarian is called in for treatment other than routine care. Take, for example, if a yearling colt gets his foreleg caught in a fence and tears the skin. The coat is stitched up and everything seems fine, but later the coat develops a systemic infection. Then there's a serious situation that the company knows nothing about.
So the company needs to know, even if it's not a life-threatening situation.
That's right. It's a policy condition. The company has a stake in the health of the animal because of the existing insurance policy. The company might want to have its own vet examine the horse. In most cases, though, just a call or email is all that is needed.
For all your equine and general insurance needs, including farm owners, liability, homeowners, auto, and more, contact Nicholson Insurance Agency at 859-224-7080. You gotta know Joe.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Scholarships are available. Visit rtip.arizona.edu.
Aloha West, hailing from two of the fastest families in the breed. Trainer Wayne Catalano said Aloha West might be the best racehorse he'd ever had his hands on.
Here's Aloha West flying down the center of the track. Here's the wire. Oh, it's close. Aloha West may have run down Dr. Shevel at the end.
Aloha West, standing at Mill Ridge, raising and selling racehorses with 36 Grade 1 winners since 2000.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
They swing for home, and wet paint is looming on the extreme outside here. Olivia Twist is running a big one. Grand Love on the inside and condensation. And wet paint from last has swept by in mid-stretch in the Fantasy. Wet paint is drawing clear. Taxt is moving on by Olivia Twist into second. Wet paint has swept the 3-year-old filly series here, and she's on to the Kentucky Oaks. She wins it with daylight to spare from Taxt, Olivia Twist, and condensation.
Wet paint pointed toward the Kentucky Oaks next Friday, day before the Kentucky Derby, winning the Fantasy Stakes there. Jim Byers had the call for you from Oaklawn earlier this season. She is the likely favorite. If not the favorite, she'll be among the top couple of choices in there. She's been really good, and we'll see if she can add the Oaks to her resume when she goes to the post beneath the Twin Spires less than 1 week from today. Welcome back to the show. Mike Penna, Baron in the Backstretch with you on this final show in the month of April before the calendar turns to May. It is going to be a beautiful day here in the Bluegrass, so if you are handicapping the Churchill card for tonight, expect that racetrack should be fast and the turf course should be in wonderful condition for opening evening, and that's going to be a great celebration as we start to make our way toward the Kentucky Derby. Again, our Derby Countdown shows coming your way live from Churchill Downs. Jude Feld, Bobby Neuman will have you covered Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. You can see our complete Derby Week schedule at horseracingradio.net. This is also the time when many people start thinking about painting the barns, painting their fences, getting the farm spruced up for summer and making sure that everything is taken care of properly. And earlier I had a chance to sit down for my annual visit with Lori Douglas and Bethany Walton from Farmpaint, and I started by welcoming them to the show, and then I asked Lori what she wants people to know about Farmpaint when she talks with a potential new customer, and here's what she had to say.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, we truly have the best paint on the market right now for barns, fences, metal gates, metal roofs, pretty much anything. I mean, we've got a high quality product for a great price, and we have the best customer service out there.
Well, that's always been the core, right? That's always been what you've always prided yourself on.
Yes,
making
indeed.
sure that when people call you or they call any of the members of the team with Farmpaint, that they're getting the best customer service. But the product is the reason that they call. So what's different about the product?
You know, we've designed all of our paints with a very unique elastomeric polymer and a UV inhibitor. All of that being said, the paint has a lot of stretch to it, so it has the ability to soak into the wood and allow the wood to expand and shrink in the different weather patterns so you don't get chipping, popping, peeling. More importantly, with the UV inhibitor, you get no fading like you would with an oil-based or a lacquer-based or an asphalt base. You know, the sun will beat down on that and fade it out. You know, our product, our biggest selling product, best selling product is our FP300 black acrylic fence and barn paint. It will not fade. Has a beautiful shine, nice, you know, glossy finish. I mean, everybody loves it. I mean, we've had no complaints.
Is it guaranteed for a certain number of years against fading?
Well, that's a loaded question, and I say that because it all depends on, did they apply enough paint? Did they paint in the correct weather conditions? You know, was there moisture in the wood? In a perfect world, it should last 5 to 8 years without a touch-up, and that's in a perfect world. We don't live in a perfect world, but hey.
Yeah, you know, one of the things when folks come to visit me here in the Bluegrass, they drive around and they see all the beautiful fences that line the horse farms and the paddocks, and everybody will comment and say, geez, I'd love to have the fence contracts around here. Well, having the painting contract's pretty good, too.
It's been awesome. We've done nothing but grow, and we're just excited. You know, every year I always get a little nervous at the beginning of the year, but you know what? We just continue to grow, and we're not just selling paint in Kentucky. We're selling paint all over the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm out in Florida all winter long, and I've developed so many relationships out there, and Ocala and Wellington, and, you know, I'm shipping truckloads there now, which is it's kind of not, you know, it's kind of nice.
Bethany, you don't know this, but before we started the interview, Lori sent me an email, and she described you as being a quote-unquote rock star. So she can't do it without you. I'm sure the team at Farmpaint can't do it without you. So talk about your role and how it's been going the past couple of years here.
So this is my third time doing our interview. It's been kind of a whirlwind. I feel like my responsibility has grown, and I've shown Lori and the ones at Farmpaint that, you know, I can handle it, and I'm building my own clientele and my own customers. Since we started, you know, I came in and really followed in Lori's footsteps, but have reached out on my own and made new contacts and new customers, and it's been amazing. Every day I'm reaching out to a new contractor or a new farm, or, you know, whether it's a 5-pail job or a 5-drum job, it doesn't matter. I treat them all the same. So it's been pretty amazing. Lori
talked about the different aspects of the product that will set it apart from other paints that are on the market, especially when it comes to talking about the ones that are going to be used on the farms and the fences and the barns. When you approach somebody and you start talking to them about Farmpaint and the other products that Farmpaint offers, what do you want them to know?
I want them to know that they're getting the best bang for their buck. They're getting the highest quality paint. And it's not just farm paint. I mean, we're painting residential properties as well. Subdivisions, your privacy fences. You're getting the best quality paint that you can possibly get for your fences, your barns, at the absolute best price.
So if somebody's out there and they're listening now and they say, well, geez, I love the idea of using this paint, but I'm not a Darley. I'm not a Coolmore. I don't have acres and acres and acres. I have an acre and a half. I have 2 acres. Can they still order a small quantity?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. We get, we have our farmpaint.com website. We get orders on there daily, and sometimes it's for 1 pail, and sometimes, believe it or not, it's for 10 or 12 drums. I mean, so we service the country. We service the world.
Yeah.
So we, a lot of people think we're a pretty small niche, but actually we're very large.
Paint is the core. and it's the foundation that this company was built upon. But there are other products that Farmpaint will offer, and there's a product called ThorTurf that I know, Lori, you're very excited about. We talk about it every year, and I want to bring it back up again because it's a really good product.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, think about a footing that's 100% dust-free. I mean, that right there says it all. Mm-hmm. I mean, no one ever has to water their footing for dust issues. And, you know, we've had arenas out there for 12, 15 years, and they've never had to replenish. They've never had any issues. I mean, we have a great product, and not only is it for arenas, I mean, you know, this year alone, well, in the last 2 years, we've sold so much of it for breeding sheds right out here in Kentucky.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah.
And we've sold to, you know, exercisers and round pens, and it's just really growing. And some of the big name top farms here are the ones that are using it for their breeding sheds.
And it's a non-slip product too,
yes,
right?
Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
Which is big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's used for all disciplines also. I mean, we're so excited. We have a non-fibered ThorTurf right now that's, you know, not real new to us, but pretty new within the last 3 to 4 years. And we've just discovered that it's great for the Western Division of reining. And, you know, we are always evolving. And ThorTurf is, it's been huge. I mean, I told you we sold thousands of tons of it over to the country of Qatar. They love it. And we're just waiting on their next order. Yeah. So it's all good.
Bethany, I see you nodding your head, agreeing with everything that Lori's saying about
Absolutely.
the ThorTurf. What do you hear about it?
It's an amazing product. We do have it in a couple of breeding sheds here in Kentucky, central Kentucky. We have several more that are on the horizon that I have visited with, that we've met with. I've taken samples to. We've measured them out. We've gotten them quotes. So it's just a matter of time. Obviously, we're in the middle of breeding season right now. So this is going to be a later summer, fall project to prepare for next year. But getting it in 1 or 2 sheds, that's where it starts. And then more and more sheds want to put it in there because it isn't like your typical footing where you're having to water it and it's bad for the horses to breathe in because there's no dust. It's not a high maintenance product. Mm-hmm. So it makes it easier for your breeding sheds and your guys in your breeding sheds.
How do people learn more about the products we're talking about here this morning?
Well, basically, if they go to farmpaint.com, they'll see that phone number on there that is 877-441-3276. That comes directly to my cell phone.
Okay.
And I can promise you I answer every call that comes through. And if I don't, and if I'm unavailable, it goes right to Bethany. So we can pretty much tell you anything and everything you need to know about Farmpaint and also ThorTurf and EquiClear, our arena dust control product. We also have a great line of Tend-A-Horse products. You go to tendahorse.com and you can buy all your hoof oils and liniments and, you know, just lots of different products, shampoos and whatnot on tendahorse.com. It's all set up.
And there's a new product on the Tenda line too, right? That just came out not long ago.
There is. It's a liniment gel. It's for soothing those sore, aching muscles pre or post workout. It's a really neat product that everyone at Tenda is very excited about.
Outside of the ThorTurf and the paint, what are some of the other products that when people call you, Bethany, and they say, hey, tell me about what else you offer? What are some of the other things you make sure you bring up to them, or maybe some of the more popular things that people bring up to you?
One of the big things that's happened in the between last fall and even now is our reflective roof coatings, especially our aluminum. Our aluminum is bar none. I had a small farm in central Kentucky who had purchased a grain bin, and they used our premium aluminum on it, and it looks like a brand new, shiny grain bin. It's amazing how high quality it is and what it looks like once it's painted.
Reflective roof coating. All right, explain that to me, Lori.
You know, basically, you know, it's going to reflect the sun, reflect the heat, kind of keeps the heat in, keeps the cold in, or keeps the cold out. Mm-hmm. We also sell a 10-year premium white elastomeric roof coating. That's a very popular product for us, not only for barn roofs, but also mobile homes roofs and all of that. But it's just an amazing, it's like painting pure rubber on. So it's going to last for several years to come.
We spend a lot of time talking about the paint that people are applying to their fences and to their barns, but you also offer a paint for aluminum products?
All of our water-based acrylic paints can be put on aluminum roofs, metal gates. Believe it or not, it can be put on block walls and even concrete.
Really?
Now, it may not be a one-coat product for that. It's going to soak it in. You're going to need more coats. But, yeah, and all of our paints they also have a built-in primer, which is huge. So,
do you have to, if you said you ship around the world, do you have to create different formulas, if you will? And this is coming from a completely layman's perspective here. Different formulas to fit different climates around the world?
No, we do not. We sell what we sell, and we just pride ourselves in having the best product out there on the market when it comes to barn and fence paint, aluminum roof coatings, elastomeric coatings. We're just, like I said, I can't say enough good about it. Like we're excited. And Bethany and I, we work together every day. We're probably on the phone 10, 15 times a day, and we feed off of one another. And, I'm just excited about everything, especially Bethany, because I actually found someone that is just as passionate about this business as I am.
Yeah.
And that's all I ever wanted. I wanted to find someone that had the passion that I have and the work ethic that I have. And, I want to grow. And, I do this because I love it, more importantly.
Who would want to talk to a rock star 10 or 15 times a day?
Yeah, well,
she puts me on a pretty high pedestal.
She's
well, it
really
sounds
good
to me like you live up to it, and we'll remind listeners that if they do want to learn more, not just about the paint, but about all the products that you offer, they can go to farmpaint.com. And let's give out the phone number one more time, Lori, where they can reach you. And if you're not available, it'll go right to Bethany.
Absolutely. Go to farmpaint.com, and if you call 1-877-441-3276, you will get Lori Douglas. And if you don't get Lori Douglas, you're going to get Bethany Walton.
And you'll be lucky to talk to either one of those young ladies here. They're fantastic. They do a great job. And really, thank you so much for all your support of what we do here on the network. It's been a wonderful relationship with the folks at Farmpaint, and we hope everybody takes advantage of this opportunity to call and talk about these great products.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to get to see you once a year. I wish I got to see you more, but hey.
I know.
I'll take it.
Bethany, appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. We really appreciate
Thanks so much. Once again, farmpaint.com, the place to go to learn more about all the products we just talked about here this morning. Thanks, ladies.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Coming up next, it is your Legends of the Turf segment, a short commercial break, and then I'll take you live to Churchill Downs in Louisville, where Kevin Kerstein is standing by to update you on all of the Oaks and Derby works that we've seen throughout the morning, and there have been plenty. That's all ahead right after your Legends of the Turf.
When the subject of Thoroughbred of this dissertation died September 26, 1945, he left a legacy that stirred more genuine affection in the hearts of sports fans than any other the American turf had ever known. Old Bones, as he later came to be nicknamed, was a lanky foal bred by F.D. Knight and earned universal acclaim on the racetrack in the colors of Willis Sharp Kilmer. As a thoroughbred, he came from nowhere, as the saying goes. His pedigree, my McGee, out of Fair Empress by Jim Gore, screamed aloud that he was strictly from the wrong side of thoroughbred racing's breeding track, so to speak. Somebody early on in his life had the presence and foresight to give him a name that fit him like a rubber glove and said it all about his talent on the racetrack as well. Exterminator. He started 100 times in his illustrious career, 150 being out of the money only 15 times. He had an interesting propensity to return to the winner's circle standing in a rather homely, ho-hum, nonchalant way. He carried the highest weight handicappers could dream up and did so with pride and with distinction. His composite earnings were astounding for the times, over $250,000. The most he ever earned for a win was $14,700 for his 1918 score in the Kentucky Derby. At that, he got to the Derby accidentally, and that story is well worth retelling. Racing for Carl Milam as a 2-year-old after being purchased from his breeder for $1,500 as a yearling, he won 4 times, but showed little, if anything, by way of class. The next spring, Willis Sharp Kilmer had the sensational colt Sunbriar eligible for the classic Run for the Roses, but Sunbriar did not train properly coming up to the race. Shortly before the Derby, Kilmer bought Exterminator from Milam for $9,000 just for the sake of having the Silks appear among the starters in the Derby, and the rest is historically chronicled. On a sloppy racetrack, the 30-1 game gelding nicknamed Old Bones, Exterminator, splashed his way to a victory at his very first important stakes event. After that, he won every kind of race that racing secretaries could conceive. Oh yes, he was beaten often, but not one time for lack of effort. They piled weight on him that would make a mule driver apologize to a mountain burro and send them on out to take on their best at their favorite distance. Exterminator never gave a poor effort. He was the unequivocal thoroughbred idol of racing patrons everywhere, his name a household word. He ran under the tutelage of 7 different trainers and made everybody famous that was ever connected with him. As gutsy and courageous a performer as ever set foot on the American racetrack, he was game to the core, even to his last race when he broke down and yet hung on determinedly to finish 3rd. In the early morning hours of September 26, 1945, he met the Grim Reaper in his stall at Sunbriar Court in Binghamton, New York at the age of 30. An inconspicuous stone marker stands there today above his head on a simple grave overlooking the Susquehanna River alongside his one-time stablemate, Sunbriar. Inconspicuous as it may be, that stone does reflect in its very pristinity that the American turf is a far, far greater and far, far richer institution for old bones having passed by. Exterminator.
Race the Twin Spires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twin Spires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twin Spires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farmpaint. At Farmpaint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farmpaint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farmpaint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
The thrill of world-class racing is just beginning at Toronto's Woodbine Racetrack. Kick off the weekend's action now with racing each Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, beginning at 1:05 p.m. Eastern, with Thursday twilight racing being added on May 25th. With more than $64 million in purses this season, you'll enjoy world-class racing and training facilities with the top turf racing in North America over the prestigious E.P. Taylor Turf Course. You won't want to miss racing at Woodbine. For wagering updates, handicapping tips, racing news, and more, visit Woodbine.com.
Airdrie Stud is proud to announce the arrival of Grade 1 winning millionaire Happy Saver for the 2023 season. Happy Saver boasts one of the most important female families of the century, as his 3rd dam is Broodmare of the Year Weekend Surprise, dam of the legendary AP Indy. Undefeated in his first 5 starts, Happy Saver capped off his perfect 4-for-4 season with an emphatic victory in the historic Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
And Happy Saver stays undefeated. He steps up and he wins the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Airdrie Studs, Happy Saver. Think about it.
Racing fans, we are now less than 1 week away from the Kentucky Derby, and live racing is back at spectacular Santa Anita with our all-new Hollywood meet, which runs through Sunday, June 18th. With less than a week to go, make your dining and seating reservations now for Kentucky Derby Day, Saturday, May 6th at SantaAnita.com. Admission gates will open early on Derby Day at 7 a.m. First live race post time is at 12 noon. Be sure to join us on Friday for the Kentucky Oaks. First live race post time is at 1 o'clock, and as always, we'll have free parking and admission on Friday, along with $3 beers and $5 margaritas. Bring the family each weekend for our infield family fun zone that includes pony rides, inflatable jumpers, and more. Get your family fun package now at SantaAnita.com/events. Again, with the Kentucky Derby now just 6 days away, make your dining and seating reservations now at SantaAnita.com or by calling 626-574-RACE.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
As Japan leads the way to the top of the stretch, Derma Sotogake under a hand ride here. Coming down to the 8th pole in control. Dura Arede is second. Then comes Continuar in third. But it is Derma Sotogake and a confident Christophe Lemaire pouring it on late. Dermasotagake, an impressive winner of the UAE Derby, winning it easily here by 5 or 6 lengths under the wire. Behind countryman Dura Rene second, and then came Continuar in third. The final time was 1 minute, 55.81 seconds. A powerful performance by Dermasotagake.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires. Mike Penna, Baron in the backstretch. Happy to have you along for the ride this morning. Diving into the Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks portion of the program. And you're going to hear a lot of Oaks and Derby talk over the course of the next, 2.5 hours or so, as I'm with you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern. Dermasotagake, that was Larry Colmus with the call of the UAE Derby. Really caught the attention of a lot of people with that effort. Now, that race has not been productive in terms of producing a Kentucky Derby winner, and we know that no horse bred in Japan has won the Kentucky Derby. But Dermasotagake has done enough in the mornings over the past couple of weeks at Churchill to catch a lot of people's attention, and he's kind of become somewhat of a buzz horse leading into next week's Kentucky Derby. Kevin Kerstein is the publicity director at Churchill Downs, and he's with me now. Kevin, good morning. Appreciate the visit. Is all of the hype surrounding Dermasotagake justified?
Good morning, Mike, and happy Derby season. It's funny. There's the buzz horse every single year for the Kentucky Derby, and sort of sorting through this field, 3 weeks ago, and he was the one that stuck out like a thumb to me. It's like, okay, he's going to be the buzz horse this year, and his training has sort of turned him into that one this year, and probably could go as low as the third choice in this year's Kentucky Derby. He's a very unique horse. Japan itself, it's such a treat to watch these horses train here at Churchill Downs, because the training methods of, countries in like Japan or Australia are completely different than the United States. And so it's so much fun to watch Dermasotagake train every morning. He's out on the track from, for about an hour and 15 minutes-ish every single morning. And so that's sort of their thing. They leave the barn and they want to be out on the track for a long time. It's very like the typical North American style of training. This morning Dermasotagake was out on the track, and he broke from the starting gate for the first time, and he sort of had a more energized gallop than we've seen in the more recent days, and he had a very sharp work the other morning here at Churchill Downs. So I think he's a very legitimate buzz horse, and even though, as you mentioned, the UAE Derby not being as a productive race at all for Kentucky Derby winner, I do think that's sort of just sort of based on what the fields were like in those UAE Derbies in more recent years. And so I think this is a much different horse we're looking at than the previous UAE Derby winners.
On the flip side of that, his countryman, if you will, his fellow countryman, Continuar, the other Japanese entrant in the Kentucky Derby, he is not catching people's attention. He has kind of gone the other way after seeing him on the racetrack the past couple of weeks. What do you make of Continuar?
Continuar, just as a horse itself, he's a very much more laid-back horse than Dermasotagake. They're two polar opposite types of horses. Dermasotagake is very energized. He's on his toes every single morning, just even walking onto the track for the first time. And he does this every single time he's on the track. And Continuar is as laid-back as they can be. We saw what happened in the UAE Derby. We've sort of seen Continuar's form. It's not the best compared to Dermasotagake. And so I think they're two not only completely different acting horses, but two different caliber types of horses. I do think that Dermasotagake, as we saw in the UAE Derby when he was able to run away with that victory, is a much better horse than Continuar. Continuar, worked with him the other day, which was a very interesting work, just sort of as an observer, because of their two different styles of running. And so they were both, I think, supposed to work 5/8, and Continuar really only went a half a mile. They're scheduled to work back on Tuesday. I don't have Continuar ranked very high at all on my, Derby watch list, but anything can happen. And the thing that, I keep telling people, worldwide, these horses from Japan are going on these different stages internationally. And even if they don't have, the top form in the world, they're really showing up ready to run. So even though this horse really hasn't shown much in his training at all, the international record for what the horses have done coming from Japan really speaks for itself.
Visiting with Kevin Kerstein. He is the publicity director at Churchill Downs, does a fantastic job. He is live beneath the Twin Spires as we speak right now, and he has been out there all morning. He's there every morning, but he's been there today, in particular, watching many of the Oaks and Derby hopefuls go through their final major workout before the big dance, and we continue to edge closer to Oaks and Derby. Kevin, we've been retweeting a lot of the videos you've sent out throughout the morning, so folks can go to your page on Twitter, which is Horse Racing KK, or they can go to @HRRN, and they can see a lot of those videos from the works this morning. What have you seen so far? Who's caught your eye throughout the morning?
It's mostly with a week out from the Kentucky Derby. It's a lot of maintenance type of works that you're seeing in the mornings. And so all of Todd Pletcher's trio of Derby contenders, Kings Barnes, Tapit Trice, and Forte, all had these maintenance half-mile moves. It's nothing abnormal from Tapit Trice to go a half-mile. Todd has said, we really haven't worked him more than a half-mile just because he's a very headstrong type of horse. Forte went, just a maintenance. He sort of looked the same as he did last week. I think he always works like that. And then Kings Barnes worked with Major Dude once again, and they were sort of, just more maintenance type of works. I think the work that people are going to, keep an eye on, and I think a horse that's going to draw some attention is Mage, who is the runner-up to Forte in that Florida Derby. He was out on the track after the break at 7:30, and he went 3/4 of a mile in 1:16.4. And really the final time doesn't really tell the full tale of the work. He was really sort of seeming to glide over the track the best right around the 8th pole and finishing well out around the turn. And so I just talked to the Gustavo Delgado camp, and they watched the work from back here right around the 1 mile chute. So they got to see him gallop out really strongly around the turn. And so they were really pleased with the way that this horse galloped out. He's a very lightly raced horse, as we know, but he's definitely looked good this morning. Brad Cox's quartet of Kentucky Derby contenders, all maintenance style works. Verifying and Angel of Empire, verifying and Hit Show went early, and then Jace's Road and Angel of Empire went late at 7:30. All sort of maintenance type of works for them. Confidence Game was a quicker 5/8 move. He hasn't really trained all that much, which is not abnormal from Keith DeSormo runners. Keith DeSormo really, does sort of lighter training with all of his barn. He has 2 walk days every single week, Thursdays and Sundays, so no matter what, horses walk. And so I think we saw him just being a little bit more keen this morning than he has been, because he really hasn't done a lot of training since his 1 mile work a couple of weeks ago. So he went 5 furlongs in 59, and he went pretty fast early in that 59 work. So I'm interested to see how he comes out of that work and what type of training he does next week, because I think that could tell, where he could be positioned early on in this Derby. I don't think he's a horse that's going to be on the lead, but I think he could be one that shows a little bit more speed than normal.
Who do you think ends up on the lead in the Kentucky Derby?
Man, it's so tough to tell. You would think that maybe, if Jace's Road is going to, be sent out of the gate, I think, he didn't make the lead in the Louisiana Derby, and it's not because, they didn't try to. He just sort of, when Kings Barnes went to his inside, he sort of tracked right off him. I think he's going to show some early pace. I do think that Derma Sotogake, the way that he acts in the morning, I do think that he's going to be pretty headstrong, and the way that I saw him break out of the gate, he was very fast out of the gate. So I do think that he's going to make the lead. But it's interesting when you talk to some of the riders, and, it's $3 million, it's the Kentucky Derby, it's the greatest race in the world. These riders are going to have to go out of the gate, because especially when the post positions are drawn on Monday and you're drawn towards the inside of some of these horses that do have some tactical speed, you have to go, or else these horses are going to come down onto your position, and you could find yourself 8 to 10 lengths back going into that first turn and really have a lot of work to do to even get into contention on the backside to try and win the Derby. And so it's not like you can be a rider that just says sit and make one move. You sort of have to go into that first turn to get position, or else you're really up against it.
There are people, Kevin, who will base their Derby wagers on the horses that they feel are getting over the surface the best in the week or two leading up to the Kentucky Derby. And we've seen a lot of horses that have been there for a couple of weeks now. Other horses will just be shipping in and getting there this weekend. But if you were to take the horses that you feel have gotten over the surface the best, give me your top 3. Which horses do you have your eye on?
It's really 2 of the 3 of the Pletchers. It's Forte and Tapit Trice. I saw Forte when I was down at Gulfstream for the Florida Derby, and I wasn't really too impressed with the way he looked. He's a more leaner type of horse when I saw him at Gulfstream. And then when I saw him when he shipped in, he sort of seems like he really filled out in that short time from the Florida Derby. and he's really seemed to do well. He's just sort of a horse that, is a little bit more aggressive when he trains. He always comes out with a pony, but he always seems to be doing the right things over this racetrack. And Tapit Trice is just a beautiful moving horse that really has gotten over the surface well. I don't think that's anything abnormal for Tapit Trice. But then a horse that I think is going to be north of 20-1 that really seems to be taking to this track well is Hit Show. And he got banged around pretty good in that Wood Memorial, so you take the race record in and of itself. But he's a horse that's based here for Brad Cox, and he really just seems to be moving well and doing well going into the Kentucky Derby.
How about on the Oaks side? Who has caught your eye in the terms of the Kentucky Oaks contenders?
This is one of the more wide-open Kentucky Oaks that I've seen in my tenure here at Churchill Downs, and I think it's going to be a very exciting race on the first Friday in May. I've seen Pretty Mischievous here for a long time, back when she was a 2-year-old, and she always caught my eye on the racetrack. And when she ran in the Fairgrounds Oaks, she was sort of second best that day to South Lawn, but she's added blinkers, and she's really done well, I think, when she's added the blinkers in her last couple of works here for Brendan Walsh. And she went easy the first work that I saw her with those blinkers, but I think she's really taken to them well, and it's definitely a wild card going into the Kentucky Derby, or the Kentucky Oaks, with an equipment change. But I do think she's the type of filly that not only handles the surface well with her previous record, but with this equipment change, I think she's going to be much more focused in the Oaks and have an improvement off that Fairgrounds Oaks.
Once again, Kevin Kerstein with me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, looking ahead to the Oaks and the Derby, and he is live from Churchill Downs. He's been watching all the workouts and keeping you up to date on who looks good, maybe who's struggling a bit over that racetrack. But you know what, Kevin, it's kind of like they say when you get two really good teams together, or a team that's really good and a team that's not having a good season, but they're rivals, you just throw the records out the window, right? When the gates open in the 20-horse Derby field or a big Oaks field, just throw the records out the window and anything can happen.
We certainly saw that last year.
Yeah.
Can happen. I mean, it really, after last year, I learned that literally anything can happen in the Kentucky Derby. And so, this is the type of race where, not only this information that you're seeing on social media and hearing on your show here and watching on any sort of, broadcast, it's the race that there's going to be so much information, more information than if you're a regular gambler when you're just gambling on the races. And so, the one thing I always try and tell people is, think long, think wrong. We all know how to handicap a race. It's a very difficult race to handicap because I think there's so much background noise that comes with the Kentucky Derby, and especially this next week. And so, I always like to tell people, think of your horse, your opinion. You're going to see this background noise, but sort of stick with it. And if there's anything major that happens, of course, you can adjust that. But you sort of have an idea of, what the race shape is going to be like, what the, who the horses are, what their form is. So you really sort of have the idea right now, 7 days out from the race, of who you can pick in the Kentucky Derby. So don't let any of that background noise completely alter your decisions, because you don't want to be kicking yourself on Saturday night at 7:15 after they run the Kentucky Derby and say, oh, man, I had that horse 2 weeks ago, but I changed my mind.
Our Derby countdown shows begin on Tuesday morning, and folks can catch those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning live from Churchill Downs, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, with interviews with jockeys and trainers and handicappers and owners and breeders. It's going to be a jam-packed 3 days of programming leading up to the Run for the Roses and, of course, the Kentucky Oaks as well. We're going to have plenty to talk about Tuesday morning, because Monday is the post position draw for both the Oaks and the Derby, and that's going to be fantastic. So set me up or set our listeners up with everything that's coming up over the next few days.
Yeah, it's really exciting times here at Churchill Downs. We kick off the 44-day spring meet tonight here at Churchill at 6 o'clock, first post, first of 10 races. So we get everything kicked off Saturday. It's really, it's a month-long celebration here in the Louisville area with the Kentucky Derby Festival going on around the city. I'm looking right now in the infield, and there's people running the Kentucky Derby Festival Marathon and Mini Marathon. They run through Churchill Downs today, so that's a really special event if you're willing to run that distance, which I certainly am not. I'm just getting tired looking at them.
I have friends that are running that marathon today, and I think they're insane.
Yes, I do as well. There's always a couple of race trackers that I hear that are running it before the races at night. they're nuts. But that's besides the point. And then Sunday, sort of sort of the maintenance day and the calm before the storm. Monday is the post-position draws for both the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks. It's 2 o'clock. You can catch the live broadcast of that on all the Kentucky Derby social media channels as well as KentuckyDerby.com. And so that'll really set the field. All the draws for the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby Day will be done on Monday as well. So we'll usually get that overnight out probably around 7 o'clock on Monday night. And so you'll have the PPs in your hand. You'll be ready to go to get handicapping on the phenomenal cards scheduled for Friday and Saturday. We race on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of Kentucky Derby week. A lot of cool events happening at the track. Tuesday's 5-0 Tuesday, which is a really cool local event for those in the Louisville area. $5 general admission. Wednesday is Champions Day with the celebration of Secretariat's 50th anniversary of his Kentucky Derby win. Thursday is Thurby, which turned into a massive event in and of itself, and so that's a lot of cool stuff going on with some bourbon demonstrations and there's good music and good bands going on. And then Friday and Saturday, Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby days. I'm sitting in your tent right now, Mike. It looks good right here on the backside, and we're really looking forward to seeing you next week and hearing all the great coverage you'll have to offer.
Yeah, what a view. That's a fantastic place to set up and do the shows, and all the horsemen are milling around, and it makes it very easy for us to acquire those guests, and we've been doing it for many years now, and it's always one of our favorite events. Of course, there's only one Kentucky Derby, right? There's only one Kentucky Derby week, and the excitement in this sport at this time of year is just next level. I'm going to ask you this question before I let you go, Kevin. I threw this out as a poll question on our Twitter page at HRRN and Horse Racing Radio Network on our Facebook page, and people are voting. What is your favorite way to bet the Kentucky Derby? And here's the choices I threw out there: win, place, or show, exacta, trifecta, or superfecta. And I'll tell you which one's in the lead right now, but I want to know your thoughts. How do you like to play the Kentucky Derby?
Well, I wish there could be another choice than that, because I'm a huge fan of the Oaks Derby Double.
Boom.
That's offered the 2-day Friday-Saturday wager. My wife loves to play a Derby Super, but I'm a big Oaks Derby Double fan, and this year's Oaks being as wide open as it is, and even the Derby, if you're not a Forte fan, I think that's going to be a really cool bet Friday and Saturday. So that's why I sort of lean a lot of my bankroll on, and then my wife's a big super, so she would be voting for the superfecta in the Derby.
Yeah, I'm a big trifecta, maybe even a super guy, but I find it hard to just get one horse to run well. Forget about trying to get all of them to run well. But win, place, show is actually the leader in the clubhouse as we speak. 33% of HRN Nation saying they'll go with win, place, and show for this year's Kentucky Derby bet.
I think they need to spice it up a little bit, right? Dive in to get some of those massive payouts, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's sort of just vanilla. It's the Derby. It's good to have cash a win ticket on the Derby, but cashing the super on the Derby, now that's a whole different animal.
And anybody can be third and fourth. Anybody.
Exactly.
Bombers. Yeah, I mean, that could really bolster those tries and superfectas too.
Or anyone can win, as we saw last year with Rich Strike.
Yeah, so true. Kevin Kerstein, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin, always appreciate the visit. I'll see you next week. Take care of that tent for me, and we'll be there in a couple days.
Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing you all next week.
All right. Fantastic stuff. Great insight. How good is Kevin? Really on top of that Derby picture. And somebody else who pays attention to the Oaks and to the Derby every year is the Pontiff of the Pick 4, Jude Feld. He'll be part of those Derby countdown shows Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning for you here on the network. He's going to be part of this show coming up in just about 8 minutes at 9 o'clock Eastern, so stay tuned for that. When I come back, it is time for this week's edition of Calling All 3-Year-Olds, presented by Spendthrift, and then I'll get you ready for Hour 2. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
HRRN is proud to bring you the Derby Countdown, presented by Hill and Dale at Alapa. Bobby Neuman and Jude Feld will broadcast live from the backstretch at Churchill Downs and bring you interviews with jockeys, trainers, owners, and other racing insiders. Plus, keep you informed with track reports and up-to-the-minute news leading up to the Kentucky Derby. The Derby Countdown, presented by Hill and Dale at Alapa, Tuesday through Thursday of Derby Week, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Go to horseracingradio.net for channel information or to listen live.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionate passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
In honor of all those we've lost to cancer and those still fighting and thriving, like basketball analyst and cancer champion Dick Vitale.
I want to beat cancer. I'm going to beat it. That's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to win this battle.
Defeating cancer will take all of us. Join our team to help fund game-changing research that saves lives. At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over the odds. V is for victory over health disparities, victory over setbacks, victory over the unknown. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Donate to the V Foundation to join our team and help save lives.
Cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul.
100% of donations fund game-changing cancer research. Donate now to the V Foundation at v.org.
I'm William Shatner, and I've been around a long time, but I'm truly humbled when I see the real battles our brave, paralyzed veterans have faced defending our freedom.
I was on a routine patrol, and we were in the desert of Kuwait, and the vehicle flipped and landed on top of me, which left me paralyzed from the waist down.
Okay, folks, this is heroism. That's why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America. Go to pva.org to learn how you can make a difference.
Hi, this is jockey Brian Hernandez. For me, there's no bigger thrill than crossing the finish line in front, and nobody captures the excitement of our sport like Horse Racing Radio Network. Each week, HRRN brings you exclusive talk shows, podcasts, and in-depth conversations with the biggest names in racing, jockeys, trainers, owners, and more. Plus, HRRN is committed to helping disabled riders through their support of the PDJF. So climb aboard a winner today by visiting horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Neuman.
We're now just 1 week away from Kentucky Derby 149, and generally the motto for this time of year is no news is good news. After all, the Derby preps have all been contested, and we know who the 20 Derby qualifiers are. Well, unfortunately, there has been some news this week. First off, trainer Chad Brown did his best impression of Santa Claus last Sunday when he announced that Blazing Sevens, who was 17th on the Kentucky Derby points list, would skip the Derby in favor of pointing for the Preakness on May 20th. That means that Jace's Road, who was last seen running third in the Louisiana Derby, now moves into the top 20 and gets to run for the Roses. But Chad Brown's gift-giving wasn't over. On the fillies front, Brown announced that his talented runner Sheeta Booty would skip the Kentucky Oaks. That in turn moves Breeders' Cup champ Wonder Wheel into the Oaks field. She looked great as a 2-year-old, but hasn't progressed yet as a 3-year-old. If you're a Wonder Wheel believer, you'll probably get a generous price on her next Friday. Then some minor news Tuesday when it was announced that jockey Javier Castellano chose to ride Florida Derby runner-up Mage in the Kentucky Derby. This means that Gotham champ Raise Kane, who was originally slated for Castellano's services, is in search of a rider. Then the awful news from Thursday when it was reported that Sunland Park Derby champ Wild on Ice suffered a catastrophic injury during a workout at Churchill Downs. His absence from the Derby means that Skinner, who was recently a closing third in the Santa Anita Derby, draws into the field. The post-position draw for all of the races next Friday and Saturday, including the Oaks and Derby, is this Monday, May 1st. I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
Spendthrift Farm introduces new for 2023 Classic winner Mo Donegal. A leading 2-year-old of his class, Mo Donegal won the Grade 2 Remsen Stakes to close out his juvenile campaign before going on to win the Grade 2 Wood Memorial and Grade 1 Belmont Stakes as a 3-year-old, joining Nyquist as Classic winners by Uncle Mo.
And it will be Mo Donegal to win the Test of the Champion, the Belmont Stakes.
Mo Donegal became the first horse this century to capture New York's prestigious Remsen at 2 and Wood Memorial at 3. Mo Donegal, the newest Classic winner, standing at Spendthrift.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Derma Sotagake. The Japanese-based runners have been dominating worldwide, and he looked great in Dubai. Number 4, Kings Barnes hasn't done anything wrong yet and showed his versatility in the Louisiana Derby. Number 3, Practical Move. The Santa Anita Derby winner just keeps firing big shots. Number 2, Tapik Trice. He's shown tons of versatility. Looks like he can run all day. And number 1, Forte. The 2-year-old champ showed his grittiness in the Florida Derby. He'll be the favorite running for the Roses. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Olds segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
7 days, 9 hours, 45 minutes, and now just 26 seconds away from that run for the Roses next Saturday at Churchill Downs. Meet those iconic Twin Spires. Poll question this morning. So many of you taking time to weigh in on social media at HRRN, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. What is your favorite way to bet the Kentucky Derby? Win, place, or show, exacta, trifecta, or superfecta? And so far, win, place, show, the old standard, in the lead with 32% of the vote, 27% saying the trifecta is their preferred wager. I'm just happy if I can pick a winner. If I can just get it. It's been a while since I picked the winner of the Kentucky Derby. Certainly wasn't last year with Rich Strike. I'm more of a trifecta guy. I like to kind of spread it out. If I'm going to, as Kevin Kerstein said in the previous segment, you can't really be vanilla when you're betting the Kentucky Derby. I mean, you can, but the attraction of the Kentucky Derby and having 20 horses in there and so many horses that are big prices is the fact that you can make a lot of money if you get the right combination. So I like to take a shot. I like to take a shot with the trifectas. Once in a while, maybe a superfecta, but that costs more money if you're going to play a superfecta. But if you got a bigger bankroll, maybe you're having a good day and you've won a few races before that, why not? But so far, most of you saying win, place, show is the way that you like to go if you're betting the Kentucky Derby. All right, coming up in the second hour of the program, the Pontiff of the Pick 4, Jude Feld, going to join me. Unsung Heroes, presented by Woodbine Entertainment, coming up at 9:20, and Jack Smith coming up right around 9:40, and then I'll tell you more about what's ahead in hour number 3 right after this. 10-second pause for station identification and your Visit Barbados racing update. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Churchill Downs opens their spring meet Saturday night with a week-long run to the Kentucky Derby. The 10-race card kicks off at 6 p.m. Eastern and is highlighted by the $175,000 Roxalena Stakes, in which Frank's Roquette could prove hard to handle, coming off back-to-back Grade 3 wins. Quality cards showcase the Saturday slate in both Northern and Southern California this afternoon, with Golden Gate offering better 6 stakes races topped by the Grade 3 San Francisco Mile. Santa Anita showcases 2 graded stakes, the Grade 2 Santa Maria for older fillies and mares at 8.5 furlongs on the dirt, and the Grade 3 Providencia for 3-year-old fillies contested over 9 furlongs on the turf. And that's your Visit Barbados Racing Update, brought to you by Barbados Tourism. Learn more at visitbarbados.org.
If you've been waiting to discover that sweet spot where peace of mind meets the time of your life, then it sounds like you've been waiting on Barbados. You've been waiting to experience a meal that makes you book a flight to have it again. You've been waiting for adventure in the sun, from the majesty of horse racing and polo to the thrill of surfing our playful waves. From the moment you set foot on the island, you'll realize Barbados is exactly what you've been waiting for. Visit jetblue.com/Barbados for special vacation packages.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires.
1 hour down, 2 to go here on the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, happy to have you back with me. If you missed any portion of the first hour of the program or any of our shows that we bring your way throughout the week, you can listen to all of them via podcast at horseracingradio.net, and you can listen on every major podcast platform, whether it be Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google, Podbean, whatever the case might be. Just make sure you're typing in Horse Racing Radio Network and stay informed with racing, not just this week, Derby week, but all year long with the programming that we present here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. A lot of things to get to. The Pontiff of the Pick 4, Jude Feld, going to be with me momentarily to talk Oaks and Derby. Unsung Heroes, presented by Woodbine, coming up at 9:20. Jack Smith going to join me at 9:40. And that's going to be a really special interview for me. Jack was the first interview that I ever did here on the Horse Racing Radio Network on my very first show 20 years ago. It was April of 2003. This is my 20-year anniversary on radio. And very happy to be able to say that I'm still with you here on HRRN, still happy to have you with me, and still happy to be doing what I love, talking about the greatest game in the world. But Jack was my first interview 20 years ago, sitting alongside my mentor, Pete Coulis. And so Jack is going to join me at 9:40, 20 years later, to talk some racing and look ahead to the Kentucky Derby. 10 o'clock Eastern, the Twin Spires Triple Play. James Scully will give you 3 races to keep an eye on. 10:20, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly stroll through racing history. And at 10:30, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin will both be here for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. Let me know where you're listening from. Had a couple of people reach out to me a short time ago, my very good friends Joe and Scott. They're fishing this morning on the Green River here in Kentucky, and they are listening to the show while they're out on the boat. So, guys, good luck. And I'll warn all the fish, don't do it. It's a trap. That's not a real lure. That's not a real fish that you're going after. So let me know where you're listening from. You can tweet the show at HRN, Mike at horseracingradio.net, another way to let me know where you're tuned into the program here this morning. Jude Feld is with me. He is the Pontiff of the Pick 4. You'll hear plenty from JT next week, live from Churchill Downs with the Derby Countdown shows Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning. JT, happy Derby week, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here. Looking forward to Derby week and the countdown shows with Bobby Neuman. We always have such a good time.
Yeah, so many great guests lined up, too. And, that's one of the cool things. And I remember when you and I first started doing those shows together years ago when we came up with the concept, you're right there where all the action happens. You have the owners and the breeders and the trainers, and you're looking at the Twin Spires from across the racetrack. It is just such a perfect spot to be Derby week.
Yeah, it's a great atmosphere, and you see a lot of people that maybe you haven't seen in a while. Everybody shows up. They want to see the horses train and, be on the backside and amongst the players. All the trainers are there and owners, and it's really a fantastic experience. So one of my favorite things to do, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. Let's talk about the horses. Oaks, Derby. Who do you have your eye on in both of those races?
Well, the Oaks is a really good race, wide open race. I was doing some last-minute studying last night, and, Wet Paint, a lot of people are not on her, which is kind of surprising to me. I mean, her record is fantastic. She's won 3 starts in a row by open lengths. Her Brisnet late pace figures, which I know you're a big fan of, are impeccable. They're all over 100. I mean, you look at those figures all the time, and you know how many horses have 100 late pace figures in their last 3. Not very many.
Yeah.
And so I think, if Flavian can keep her in a good spot and give her a shot to run in the stretch, she's going to be pretty tough in that race, regardless of what all the geniuses say about her. The other 2 that I like, South Lawn is Norm Cassie's filly, and he's done a great job with her. She's won her last 2 starts, including the Fairgrounds Oaks. She looked really sharp. I had a little bet on her that day. She was 7-1. Norm Cassie's a favorite trainer of mine. I think he does a great job, and if I ever hit lotto, he's going to be my private trainer. He doesn't know that yet, but that's what I'm saying it publicly, so I can't back down. And then the other horse that I think is interesting is Botanical. She's run on turf and poly. She's never run on the dirt, but she's Medaglia d'Oro out of a blame mare. So there's no reason to think she won't run well on the dirt. And she's won 4 straight for Brad Cox. So, I don't know if you need an engraved invitation to pick her. I mean, she looks pretty good to me. So that's kind of how I'm looking at the Oaks right now. Of course, anything can happen, and we'll be there next week looking at all the horses train and see who's catching our eye, which is very important to me. I really enjoy that aspect of the game. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question because I asked that question of Kevin Kerstein in the first part of the program. Will you alter your opinion of a horse when you watch them in the mornings and you see how they're getting over the track? Will you upgrade them or downgrade them based on what you're seeing?
Yeah, our old colleague Sean Clancy and we used to stand out there on the countdown shows and watch the horses go by, and we'd make notes, and we'd then later go on to the press box to watch the horses, that didn't work, that were jogging or whatever. We would pay strict attention to it, and I believe in that. We got on some and we got off of some based on what they were looking like in the morning, and Sean's got a great eye, and he's, quite a horseman, being a Eclipse Award-winning jump jockey and a great bloodstock agent now. So, it's good to pay attention to that. And I changed a couple of things watching the works on Churchill's show this morning that I wasn't particularly impressed with a couple, and there were a couple horses that kind of stood out to me. But I think Tapit Trice is a beast. I mean, he's such a beautiful horse. I mean, he's got a rear end like a Mack truck. Bobby Frankel taught me that's where the power comes from, and he's definitely got the power. I know he doesn't have a lot of speed, and people are making a big deal about the pace, but it's been my experience as a trainer that when there's big money on the line or it's a super big race, the jocks get a little antsy and they want to go. So I think the pace may be faster than people think, because I lost a grade one time because Angel Cordero, couldn't wait to take the lead at the 8th pole, and I told him to wait till the 16th pole, and we got beat 3 necks or something, finished 4th. Story of my life. But
you never rode that guy again, did you, Cordero?
No,
come on.
Actually not. It's a funny story. I offered him the mount, even though he didn't listen to me, and the horse got beat. I offered him the mount at Santa Anita, and he told me, no, I'm not coming back to the West Coast. So I got Eddie Delahousie to ride my horse, and the next time the horse runs is at Santa Anita in the San Miguel Stake, and I've got Delahousie lined up, and Cordero walks into my barn on the entry day and says, I'm here, I'm back, I can ride your horse. I said, no, you can't. I said, I got a call with Delahousie, and he's my pal, and I'm not taking him off. So anyway, that's how that worked, and we won the San Miguel Stakes by 10 lengths. But that's just a side note.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about Tapit Trice, and he is a horse that even Kevin mentioned him in the first hour of the program. He's a horse that's going to attract a lot of attention. His race record fits. He looks the part physically. He's getting over the track very well, from what I understand. You said that as you were watching the Works show from Churchill this morning, there were horses like Tapit Trice that caught your eye, but there were other horses that you kind of downgraded based on what you saw. So tell me about both sides of that, JT.
Well, I was a little disappointed with King's Barnes' work. Mm-hmm. I thought he had a better chance than I think he does now. It just was kind of workmanlike. It wasn't particularly great. One thing I will say about all of this is the track might have been a little funky today. I mean, we did have bad weather the last couple days, and it may not have been like a super fast track. Some of the workouts were slow, like that horse. They call him Mage. I call him Mahe. But in any case, it's more Spanish to say Mahe than Mage. Anyway, he worked like 3/4 in 1/16. I mean, how often do you see a horse that's not Japanese work 3/4 in 1/16 going up to the Derby? That's kind of unheard of. So, I don't know. Works are funny sometimes. You put a lot of stock in them, and then you find out, well, the track was kind of weird and things didn't work out, and the horse gets back on a fast track. But who knows what the track's going to be like on Derby Day? It rains most derbies I've been to, which is like, I don't know, 15 or something. How many derbies have we done on the radio?
My first Kentucky Derby was 1998, and then I had gone to almost every single one since, but we started working the Derby. Gosh, the Derby itself was 2011. Was the first year that we broadcast the Kentucky Derby, but you remember for years before that we were broadcasting the undercard and the Kentucky Oaks and all the different races leading up to the Derby.
Yeah, and we even did the Belmont Stakes before that in 2007. That was our first out-of-town trip. I'll never forget that trip. That was crazy. They set us up. It was our first trip out of town to do a big race, and they set us up next to ESPN. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but there were like 40 people working for ESPN setting up their situation and their desk and all the cameras and the audio and everything. And it's just you and Pete Coulis and me and red and yellow index cards. And, you know, we're like we're like the guys from Podunk that came into New York to cover this race. And
yeah,
so,
remember we had the pop-up canopy. We didn't even have a tent or anything at that point. It was our first national radio broadcast, and we had a pop-up like tailgating tent that we were. And John Edwards, our producer, was there. Poor Johnny barely fit underneath the tent.
Yeah, no, that was hysterical. And so we're ready to go. Everything's fine. ESPN tries to go on the air, and they can't get on the air. And they had 40 people there, and I'm going, oh, this is not good. So they were like running around like a bunch of ants in an ant farm. It was crazy to watch them. Everybody was so stressed out, you know. But we got through that show, and that was a great race, and we had a lot of fun in the coverage, and you know, that's where the Bedard sisters became famous for their Carnations Are for Girls sweatshirts, and yeah, it was a great day for us, and not so great a day for ESPN.
Yeah, it was a tough. And you know, that was our first national broadcast, the Belmont Stakes. Then we ended up broadcasting the Belmont from Monmouth that year in 2007, or the Breeders' Cup. I'm sorry, from Monmouth, and that was the day that you got drenched in the paddock. It was a downpour, and we were at that point we were under a tent. We got rid of the pop-up canopy, and I think Breeders' Cup provided us with a tent, so we had a pretty good setup. But you did not. You were in the paddock, and I remember you were drenched that day.
I was soaked. It was that tree in the paddock at Monmouth really kept me as dry as I could possibly be, which is not dry at all. Matter of fact, I remember getting on the bus with Sandy Hawley and the guy that used to call the races at Woodbine. What the hell was his name? Nice guy. Anyway, there's only three of us on the bus, and it's pouring down rain. I mean, just coming down in sheets. And so the bus driver says, I'm going to take you guys back to the hotel. And I'm just going, oh, that's great, you know, because I'm like literally wet as a noodle. And I get back to the hotel, and I take my clothes off, and I'm wringing them out in the bathtub. And it's like, oh, my God, I can't imagine this much water.
Yeah.
So it was a brutal day, but it was really, all in all, it was one of my favorite Breeders' Cups. I really enjoyed doing it and being there, and even though it was not the most pleasant of weather circumstances, it was really a cool event, and I thought Monmouth did a good job. And it was really, really funny because Bob Baffert won a race with Midnight Loot, and all the reporters are lining up to get the interview, and he says, no. He says, you know, you guys haven't been talking to me. I haven't been winning any races lately. So he goes, but Jude talked to me even when I wasn't winning. So I'm going to him first.
Yeah.
Well, that was like a big feather in my cap and HRRN's cap, you know, because, you know, he came over and did the interview with us, and then he went to NBC, and they're like shaking their head like, what the hell is this? You know? But it was cool.
That wasn't Dan Loisel, was it? Is that who was with you?
Yeah, that's him. Dan,
you mentioned the announcer. Yeah, Dan, one of the real good guys.
Great voice, great man. We had a fantastic conversation on the bus ride back. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't remember his name, but you know.
Yeah, he was one of the. I mean, still is one of the great guys in thoroughbred racing, and one heck of an announcer too. He had that very unique voice, and he was tremendous. By the way, if listening to folks are listening to us kind of rehash some of these stories now, visiting with the Pontiff of the Pick Four, Jude Feld. I told this story at the top of the show, Jude, that it was April of 2003, exactly 20 years ago, that I began on radio here in Lexington and at 1 a.m. station. Pete Coulis, my mentor, interviewed me at Keeneland and then said, hey, what do you think of being my co-host? And I said, what the hell? Why not? I've never done anything like this. And 20 years later, here we are, having developed this whole horse racing radio network and still here doing this show on Saturday morning, which has now expanded from a 1-hour program to the current 3-hour format. But at that time, you were also hosting your own radio program here in Lexington on a completely different station, and that's how I met you. And we would go back and forth, having each other on our respective shows as a guest. And it's amazing sitting here 20 years later, everything's still in place. We're still talking about this great game of thoroughbred racing.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It was fun having my own show, and Ellis Starr, the Uber capper, was my sidekick, and it was a good show. And then they sold my station to the Mexican station, and we didn't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Pete couldn't travel as much with health problems and whatever, so I kind of filled in for Pete, and then we've gone from there, and it's been great. I mean, certainly a lot of fun, and we've we can tell some stories, some on the air, some not on the air. But
yeah. Well, let me tell you, it's been a wonderful ride, and JT, I appreciate you talking Oaks and Derby here, and I am really excited to have you back as part of the Derby Countdown shows again here in 2023. Again, those begin Tuesday morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, I've got to get to a break, but I really appreciate you spending a little time with me here this morning to kick around a few ideas, just like our producer would kick a TV at the fairgrounds every once in a while.
There you go. The great Adam Fournier. Well, thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed it, and trip down memory lane, and happy to be part of the broadcast once again.
All right, brother. We'll see you next week.
All right. Take it
Pontiff
easy.
of the Pick Four, Jude Feld, nobody better. Pope Jude, as we like to call him here on HRRN. Catch him and Bobby Neuman Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning. Going to be a wonderful week live from Churchill Downs. Coming up next, it is time for this week's edition of Unsung Heroes, and then a special interview with Jack Smith coming up at 9:40. This is the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires on HRRN.
Race to Twin Spires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twin Spires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twin Spires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Racing fans, we are now less than 1 week away from the Kentucky Derby, and live racing is back at spectacular Santa Anita with our all-new Hollywood meet, which runs through Sunday, June 18th. With less than a week to go, make your dining and seating reservations now for Kentucky Derby Day, Saturday, May 6th at SantaAnita.com. Admission gates will open early on Derby Day at 7 a.m. First live race post time is at 12 noon. Be sure to join us on Friday for the Kentucky Oaks. First live race post time is at 1 o'clock, and as always, we'll have free parking and admission on Friday, along with $3 beers and $5 margaritas. Bring the family each weekend for our infield family fun zone that includes pony rides, inflatable jumpers, and more. Get your family fun package now at SantaAnita.com/events. Again, with the Kentucky Derby now just 6 days away, make your dining and seating reservations now at SantaAnita.com or by calling 626-574-RACE.
Adina Stallions set the gold standard, all #1 in their category. Point of entry, the #1 stallion by black type and greatest stakes winners standing in Canada.
Oh, the classy point of entry would not be denied.
Shaman Ghost, the #1 second crop sire standing in Canada.
It's Shaman Ghost, an overwhelming force in the last 16th of a mile.
Signature Red, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type winners standing in Canada.
Signature Red won his second Highlander in a row.
And Silent Name, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type performers standing in Canada. A list that includes Grade 1 winner Silent Poet.
Silent Poet in front, Admiralty Pier out the ground, but Silent Poet has won the Highlander Stakes.
And don't forget Adina's new sire, American Guru. His first crop are now yearlings of 2023. American Guru, the son of Unbridled Song, whose family have already set their gold standards around the world.
Racing at Gulfstream.
There's plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the Royal Palm Meet, with live racing Thursday through Sunday and simulcast every day. It's spring season in South Florida and time to witness exceptional racing. Watch the action from Carousel Club or feast in 10 Palms with an elevated view of the track. For stake schedules, reservations, and tickets, visit GulfstreamPark.com. That's GulfstreamPark.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
Heroes in the world of sports are not uncommon, oftentimes thrusting themselves into the limelight through unimaginable feats.
Back behind the ball, Woods puts it.
And in! He has done it! Tiger is back! Tiger is back on top! Tiger Woods, the 2019 Masters champion.
And breathtaking performances.
Here's how you count to 8. 3, 2, 1. And for the 8th time, college basketball's national championship trophy is coming home to Kentucky.
But behind every great hero, there are others. Individuals who play a crucial role in the achievements of those we read about in the headlines. The ultimate team players, content to stand behind the curtain, embracing their place as a vital part of a sport's success. In horse racing, these are the unsung heroes.
Oh, much like here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where there are so many people involved with making our shows possible over the course of the past 20 years, our producers, our engineers, and our researchers, my beautiful wife, Michelle, so many people that have helped us get to where we are today, 20 years later. Just like that, there are so many people in the sport of thoroughbred racing that do incredible work that you never hear about. They do it behind the scenes, and they work so hard to make our sport a success, and without them, we don't have a sport. And one of those organizations is Second Stride, and Kim Smith is the founder and executive director of Second Stride, and they do wonderful, wonderful work for our racehorses that are now retired. They find them different careers and different homes, and Kim is with me now here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. She is this week's Unsung Hero. Kim, really appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you, Mike, and congrats on 20 years. That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, congrats to you and everything you've accomplished with Second Stride. Tell people a little bit more about it, because this is such a wonderful thing that you've started.
Well, as I said, it's been 18 years now. So we started in 2005 formally, and we place on average about 140 to 150 horses throughout the year into new careers, new homes.
How do you go about acquiring the horses?
Well, we get them usually straight from trainers that we work with. Sometimes we do get them from rescue situations, family members that have passed, situations like that. But usually we work and service the horsemen directly to provide them just an outlet to professionally and safely get the horses transitioned from racing to a new job.
What are some of those new jobs that racehorses will do after they retire?
You'd be surprised. Companionship, riding, showing, those are all pretty much the traditional things. But over the last 18 years, I've been really amazed at the thoroughbred athlete and what they've networked themselves into doing. I have a young lady local who did mounted archery with her steeds, and quite successfully. Her thoroughbreds were some of her favorites. So she would run down a line and shoot balloons with arrows, and it's quite spectacular to watch her video clips. So you can check some of those out on our Facebook page and our website. Military reenactment, search and rescue, placed a little Stormcat colt into search and rescue in North Carolina. So that was kind of interesting.
Wow, fantastic. And you know, thoroughbreds are they're so adaptable too, right? We see them on the racetrack, and we see them going around in a circle in the afternoons, and we go, oh, okay, well, they're beautiful, they're fast, but boy, they're smart. You can train them to do several different things, as you just outlined.
Yes, no, they're so adaptable, really. I mean, these horses come into us so fit and so, full of energy, and channeling that into just learning something a little new works great when we use industry professionals. So a lot of our riders come straight over after Churchill. We're on their way out to the training centers. They'll help us transition them. It's great because they talk the same language to the horse. So the horse feels everything the same, though he's in a new environment. So they'll get them started over obstacles in the arena, just give them confidence, because really they just need to channel that into the new, understanding the new job. Their work ethic's there, and the athleticism is there, and they're extremely smart. They're always trying to figure out what their task is, what the job is, what you're wanting them to do.
Well, if you go to the website, secondstride.org, you can learn more about Kim and their team and everything that they do. But there's a note here that caught my eye, Kim, that says over 1,500 retired thoroughbred racehorses have been adopted through the Second Stride program since 2005. That seems like a massive number to me.
Yes, and we're hoping that grows. So we transitioned into a new facility. We will be there 1 year as of September. So in Prospect, Kentucky, Chorleywood Farm, owned by Mr. Kerstein, and we have an impressive goal of servicing through that facility 1% of the foal crop this year. So we're well on our way to that goal. That's 180 horses at least this year for us to service. We're already adopted 49. So, and we probably have about another 23 in the program.
Wow. Well, that's great. What led you to start Second Stride, Kim?
I just was the liaison, it seemed. This was before the internet, so that dates me. I mean, that's kind of sad, funny. But back then, people would, when I'm at the track, I was the manager at the Derby Museum of the Horse exhibit there. And when I was at the track, I also showed horses, and so people would come to me to network their horses into new homes. My bookkeeper finally told me I was hemorrhaging money, and I was a not-for-profit, so that was in 2008 when the economy tanked really badly. It was, and the internet started. Then it really became evident that this, at a mass level, was becoming an unequitable situation. The cost of keeping horses is just so expensive to properly transition them.
Visiting with Kim Smith, she is the founder and executive director of Second Stride, and she has outlined the different things that they do to help our retired racehorses find them second careers and second homes. She is this week's Unsung Hero in this segment presented by Woodbine Entertainment. Kim, you have a very special night coming up on Monday. It is Champions Night. It is a fundraising event. Tell me more about what folks can expect at this event.
Gosh, super excited this year. We have a new young rock star managing the event, so you'll be seeing some different things. We hope you'll come out, support us. It's the only race industry give back, and it kicks off Derby Week. It's for the horses. So it's the only party you're going to go to that's going to be giving back to the horses, the stars of the race. So come on in. It's a $20 suggested donation, and the night's going to be packed. There's going to be handicapping panels there. It's right after the post-draw, music, live, raffles, auctions, you name it. It's going to be epic.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be incredible. What are the specific details? Where is it going to be held? How do people get involved? How can they attend? And does it cost anything to attend? How does the whole thing work?
Yep, so it's at Molly Malone's in the Highlands, 6 to 9 p.m., trying to get people out of there. I know a lot of race trainers, the whole industry comes to support normally, and so we try to get them out of there promptly by 9 because we know they're up at 4 at the track. So You come on out. It's a free venue with a $20 suggested donation at the door. We appreciate your support, and there'll be all kinds of celebrity guests, auction items, raffles. It's going to be an entertaining night, as well as get your fish sandwich there at Molly Malone's.
Yeah, you can't beat it. And it supports a wonderful organization. You said it's supporting the horses and the stars of the show, and I think that's fantastic. Byron King from Blood Horse will be there to moderate a Derby and Oaks handicapping discussion. Andy Biancone from FanDuel and TVG. Steve Bick, my radio brethren from SiriusXM here, is going to be there, and Gary Palmisano from Churchill Downs. So you've got a lot of people that know an awful lot about this sport and really have their finger on the pulse, and it's going to be a great night, and we'll encourage people to head to secondstride.org to learn more, not just about the organization, but about that fundraising event too.
Oh, and Mike, we also had a eligible panel add-on there, Doug Notchman. So
Nice. It just continues to grow.
Yeah, we hope to see you guys there.
Well, Kim, listen, it's been a delight. Congratulations on all your success with Second Stride. Keep up the wonderful work. It is so important, and congratulations on being this week's Unsung Hero. I appreciate the visit here this morning.
Thank you for having us.
All right, Kim Smith here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Secondstride.org is where you can go to learn more. I'll be back right after this word from Woodbine.
The thrill of world-class racing is just beginning at Toronto's Woodbine Racetrack. Kick off the weekend's action now with racing each Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, beginning at 1:05 p.m. Eastern, with Thursday twilight racing being added on May 25th. With more than $64 million in purses this season, you'll enjoy world-class racing and training facilities with the top turf racing in North America over the prestigious EP Taylor Turf Course. You won't want to miss racing at Woodbine. For wagering updates, handicapping tips, racing news, and more, visit Woodbine.com.
Plenty more to come here on the Horse Racing Radio Network this morning, with you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern here on the Equine Forum. Jack Smith is going to join me next, and then Hour 3 begins at 10 Eastern, and it begins with James Scully, giving you 3 races to keep an eye on later today with the Twin Spires Triple Play. Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20, and at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin. I have some really entertaining topics I'm going to throw at those guys today. I think you're going to enjoy it. That comes up at 10:30 here on HRRN. But when I come back, Jack Smith will join me. This is going to be fun. This is the Equine Forum presented by Twin Spires on HRRN.
Race the Twin Spires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twin Spires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twin Spires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Warfront. This son of Danzig ranks among the world's elite sires. Ranked number 1 by percentage of stakes winners, graded stakes winners, and Grade 1 winners. No stallion has a better strike rate. Warfront is the sire of over 100 lifetime stakes winners, including some of the sport's most talented runners both at home and abroad. The leading turf sire of 2022 by stakes winners and stakes performers. Warfront, standing at Claiborne Farm.
Hey everyone, it's the Baron with this week's North of the Border report presented by Woodbine Entertainment. Stakes action returns to Woodbine this weekend with the $125,000 Star Shoot for 3-year-old fillies topping today's 10-race card, and the $125,000 Woodstock for 3-year-old boys highlighting Sunday's program. The Star Shoot has attracted a diverse field of 8, including Kavala, who makes her stakes debut with hopes of remaining perfect after beginning her career 2 for 2. However, remaining undefeated won't be an easy assignment for Kavala, with Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse entering 3 fillies and fellow Hall of Famer Josie Carroll set to saddle 2 runners in the 6-furlong event. Cassie's trio includes Fearless Angel, who was a nose shy of winning her first stakes over the Woodbine lawn last fall. Strokes, a winner of 2 starts from 6 lifetime outings, and highly regarded maiden Anti-Hero. The daughter of Candy Ride displays an impressive work tab for her debut. Josie Carroll sends out dual stakes winning filly Collective Flatter, who is yet to be beaten in 3 starts over the synthetic surface at Woodbine. Her stablemate, Dolce Sorpresa, will be making her 3-year-old debut in today's Star Shoot after ending her juvenile campaign with a hard-fought maiden win at today's 6-furlong distance. And that's your North of the Border report for this Saturday morning. For more updates and racing information, visit Woodbine.com or follow along on both Twitter and Instagram at WoodbineTB. Oscar Performance, #1 for all sires of 2-year-olds on turf by Progeny earnings for 2022. And breeders are excited for what lies ahead in 2023.
And the winner is, Indeed has won the Castle and Key Bourbon.
Red carpet ready indeed. She's looking good. She wins by 3 in the end.
Oscar Performance, standing at Millridge, raising and selling racehorses with 36 Grade 1 winners since 2000.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
As the field turns for home in the Belmont, and it is Empire Maker on the outside. Santos has gone to the whip on Funny Side. Empire Maker a short lead. Funny Side is doing his best, but he's dropping back. And here comes Pat Day, and he's coming with 10 Most Wanted. Funny Side has dropped back to third. Down to the final 100 yards of the Belmont. Empire Maker Jerry Bailey asking him for everything he has. 10 Most Wanted right there with him. Here's the wire, and Empire Maker has won the 135th Belmont Stakes. He won it by a neck over 10 Most Wanted. Farther back, Funny Side checked in third, beaten 5 lengths.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires on this Saturday morning, the final Saturday in the month of April, before we segue into May and that run to the Kentucky Derby 1 week away. Tom Durkin had the call of the Belmont Stakes 20 years ago in 2003. Empire Maker denying Funny Side his Triple Crown that year. And we've been spending time throughout the past couple of hours here on the show looking back at 2003. As I mentioned at the top of the show, that was the year that I first started on radio, so I thought it was appropriate to spend some time looking back at some of the top moments of 2003. My mentor, Pete Coulis, took me under his wing and asked me to be his co-host 20 years ago. And the very first show that I remember doing and sitting in with him, it was at the old studio in Lexington, Kentucky, for an AM station here in Lexington. And we were set up, and we did an interview with a gentleman by the name of Jack Smith. And that was the first interview I ever did on radio. I remember shaking like a leaf that day. I was so nervous that, people were going to ridicule me or whatever, and they probably still do. But I was so nervous that day, and Jack Smith was our interview. Jack was fantastic. And 20 years later, I say, welcome to the Equine Forum, Jack Smith. He is my guest right now. Jack, good morning.
Good morning. It couldn't be 20 years. It was yesterday, wasn't it?
Boy, I'll tell you what, these 20 years have really flown by. And as I was getting ready for this conversation, and I know you and I have talked about this at times over the past several years, but getting a chance to remember Pete is always important to me too. And Jack, I went back and found this golden nugget of Pete opening a show 20 years ago. Here's what this show used to sound like. This is a little vintage clip for you.
Good morning once again, everybody. Welcome to the Lexus Equine Forum on this 11th day of November, calendar year MMBI. That's 2006 for those of you that have difficulty in translating Latin. 11th day, 11th month, a lot of aces on the board, usually 2 aces in studio, and I say that jestingly, of course. Yours truly and Michael Penna. I will be flying solo here this morning, a la Wiley Post, Amelia Earhart, Charles Lindbergh, call it whatever you will, on a very significant day, as a matter of fact, this being the 11th day, the 11th month. As a little sidebar for you, you got a lot of aces on the board, as I've alluded to. If you're a poker player, you got a hell of a hand. You got 4 aces. If you're a pinochle player, you got at least 10 mil. You're probably going to bid 25. If you're a pitch player, you got 4 natural highs in your hand. But on a rather serious note, this is indeed Veterans Day, most significant. The armistice, at least in theory, for ending the war to end all wars, and I said at least in theory, that's what they told everybody at the time, signed on the 11th month, the 11th day, the 11th hour.
Jack, how about that for a little trip down memory lane?
Well, I'll say this about Pete. He was always teaching, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he
I
loved
never had a conversation with him that I didn't walk away and say, I think I learned something right there.
And Pete's the one who brought us together. As I mentioned, you
Yeah.
were the very first person that I ever had the opportunity to interview on radio when I was sitting in with Pete. But, so I owe Pete, a huge debt of gratitude for that, certainly, and for everything that he taught me. But, 20 years ago, this game has changed so much over the past 20 years, hasn't it, Jack?
It really has. Well, you've been part of it, Mike. You and your programming has been very much of a part, because back in those days, we had very little radio or television of horse racing, and now it's available. And I think that's a good thing. I hope it's brought in a lot of new people, but if I've got a horse running in Texas or California, I can go watch that without getting on a plane and going to Texas or California, and that's good.
Yeah, Jack, you've had so many wonderful moments in this sport, too. Your Jack Smith Thoroughbreds. You've campaigned some beautiful horses. When you think back on your career in the game, what are some of the things that come to mind as highlights for you?
I think the people I've met, along with the horses. Horses carry you there, but I've done partnerships, probably, I don't know, a couple hundred people in over that period of time. But I've once met some wonderful people, and several of them are longtime friends. I mean, not just customers, but friends. And you learn from every one of them, and you learn a lot of other things, too, from them. But I think that's the important thing. And I've also met people like Ted Bassett, who is one of my favorites of all time. And my first trainer was a fellow named Horatio Luro. And, boy, he was a piece of education. He trained, among other things, Northern Dancer, and he took me on as a client. And people like that. And great trainers, Buck Bradley, Bill Mott, jockeys like Jerry Bailey. Jerry. And it's just been a real trip. And I didn't start that way in life. I went to the races early. I grew up down in western Kentucky, and Ellis Park, or it was called Dade Park in those days, was the closest track, and we would go on a Saturday in August. And I just thought watching those people, it was exciting. We had bad horses. They were very slow, but I kind of got excited about it. And as my life and jobs carried on, I got a chance to be close to racing. And probably the highlight of my association with the racing was that I was working for Philip Morris, and we put on the first Marlboro Cup in 1973.
Wow.
Which is an anniversary because Secretariat won that and set a world record. And God, that was really fun. It was I got to deal with Luro and Charlie and all kinds of people putting that show on. The New York Racing Association. We had Secretariat and Riva Ridge in that race, and that was my last day at Philip Morris. But what a way to go!
Wow, what a way to go indeed. My goodness. Yeah, what a fantastic story that is, Jack. How about some of the other horses that you've had the privilege to be around and be part of through your Jack Smith Thoroughbreds? Some of those horses that you're never going to forget.
Well, I would have to say that Laura's Pistolet was one of my favorites. I came up here to run the Racing Commission in 1993, I guess, 92, and worked for Governor Jones. And one day he called me and he said, I need for you to go out to the September sale today and buy a horse. And I said, Burry, I don't have any horses. I sold them all before I left Georgia, and I'm very happy the way it is. He said, there's a horse in the sale this afternoon that you need to buy. I said, really? And I went out there and bought what turned out to be Laura's Pistolet, a filly by Big Pistol, and she was very ordinary looking, and paid, I think, $20,000 for her. And I walked over to the barn and told them to take her back to the farm because I had no idea what we were going to do with her. A couple of months later, Tim or somebody from the farm called and said, "You need to come out here and see this horse. She's not bad." So I went out there and we decided to put her in training. And a long story short, she won $700,000 and I think 5 graded stakes. And the highlight of her career, I think, and mine maybe, was winning the big race at Ellis Park, the Gardenia. And at that time, it had a purse of $200,000, and she won going away, and real fun. It really, I mean, days like that make you, well, they humble you to start with, but they make you love the business.
Yeah, they certainly do. And visiting with Jack Smith, taking a little trip down memory lane here on the Horse Racing Radio Network this morning. Jack, you don't stay in the game the way you have for so long and do your job so well if you're not willing to adapt. And when I called you to ask you to join me on the program, we were talking about some of the things that have changed significantly in our sport over the past 20 years. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen, and how have you had to adapt the way that you do business now?
Well, I guess the first thing is there are a heck of a lot more partnerships than there were when I started.
Yep.
And I give credit to Cott Campbell. He taught me how to do it. And I would say that Cott sort of set the standards for that part of the business. And today, most horses, and most good horses, are owned by multiple people. And that's a good thing because it shares the expenses and shares the excitement. And if these people who are, I'd say, well off, if they have fun and have success, they'll buy another horse.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest thing has changed. But I also think that the communication era of radio and television has helped a lot and made it more available to people. I like that part. And then people are writing good stories. I mean, we've had some very nice communications about the horse racing business. And when you have a hero come along like Secretariat or Riva Ridge or some of the ones that have won later, it's good for the business. That's what I like, is what's good for the business.
Well, I can tell you this, Jack Smith is good for the business, and he has been for a very long time. Jack, we are both blessed to be able to sit here and have another racing conversation 20 years after our first one, and I really do appreciate you spending some time with me here this morning.
Well, I want to say this, that I will always remember Pete. It's not that you didn't have a big part of it, but I'm not quite sure I ever met another person quite like Pete. But we had a lot going on together. He and I were in the service at the same time in the same place.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I knew a little bit about New England racing, and he knew a lot about it. But anyway, things like that, gosh, this is a great way to start Saturday.
Yeah, it certainly is, Jack. I appreciate it, and thanks for saying that about Pete, too. He's a wonderful person. We miss him all the time, and I still keep him involved in the show. He created all of those Legends of the Turf segments, the stories that he tells, and we play one every single week here on the program to remember
That's great.
Pete.
I'll continue to tune in and listen for him because I don't know anyone else that ever did that.
Nope. He was one of a kind. Jack, I appreciate it, my friend.
All right, I'll see you at the races, Mike, and thank you for having me.
Yes, you will. Thanks, Jack. Jack Smith here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. 20 years after my first interview ever on radio, and it was with Jack Smith, and here we go again, talking 20 years later. So thanks to Jack for taking the time to do that. Time now for your KTA Kentucky Bred Spotlight. Don't forget that you can reap the rewards of breeding and racing here in Kentucky. You can combine all the purse money. Think about this. Combined purse money with the association and the KTDF paid out an all-time high of more than $165 million in 2022. That followed a previous benchmark of more than $134 million set in 2021. Average field size in Kentucky is 8.4. That's higher than Florida, New York, and California. Average purse per race in Kentucky, 77,126. That outpaced all other leading racing jurisdictions, including Arkansas, New York, California, and Florida. Additionally, over $200 million has been distributed to Kentucky breeders since 2006, and with purse money soaring, and thanks to the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, some of the fullest fields in the country with quality racing year-round, there is absolutely no better time to breed and race in the Bluegrass. And as we head into the Triple Crown season, don't forget this. Kentucky breds are poised to add more to their history of the success that they've had in the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks. There's a total of 16 of the top 20 Kentucky Derby contenders, and 18 of the top 20 Kentucky Oaks contenders are bred here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. For more information, visit KentuckyBreds.com. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win. I'm back to take a look at a couple of historical dates in racing history next. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Hi, Tony. Hey, Matthew. There's a reason why Tony's Steaks and Seafood is my favorite restaurant. It's because I want to feel part of the family. Isn't that right, Tony?
That's right. There's a saying on the wall that I truly believe in. There's always room for one more at our table. We just want you to be part of our family.
And believe me, you will be. It's Tony's Steaks and Seafood right across from Triangle Park. Visit them at TonySteaksandSeafood.com.
My battle buddies and I attended the NHL Stadium Series at Yankee Stadium. We had never been there before, and two of us had never seen a hockey game. Man, we had the time of our lives. It was great therapy. Vet Tix, we can't thank you enough.
Every empty seat at a concert, a game, motorsports, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can help. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Find out how by visiting www.vettix.org. That's www.vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding. Whoa! Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Woohoo! Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie. So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Bobby Neuman. Join Jude Feld and me for our Derby Countdown shows Tuesday through Thursday of Kentucky Derby Week. We'll be broadcasting live from Churchill Downs as we speak with jockeys, trainers, owners, and handicappers, as well as bring you up-to-the-minute news leading up to Kentucky Derby 149. The Derby Countdown shows presented by Hill & Dale at Alapa, Tuesday through Thursday of Derby Week, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen live on Sirius 218, XM 202, or online at horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
I'll update you on the poll question here. So many of you taking time to vote on our Twitter page and Facebook. You can keep those votes coming. I asked you, what is your favorite way to bet the Kentucky Derby? And so far, 32% of you saying it's win, place, and show. Interesting. Keep it simple and make some money in the Kentucky Derby next week. A couple of other tweets coming in. Michael chimes in and says, listening to your show while running the Kentucky Derby Festival mini marathon is a tradition for me. Really appreciate that, Michael. That's kind of a cool tweet. And Bob sends in and says, I love hearing Jack Smith on your show. Jack got me started as a horse owner in 1991 with a horse named Tricky Creek. I think a lot of people would say that Jack had an influence on getting them into the game, and I really appreciate him taking time with that last segment. Not a whole lot of time left to take a look at many historical dates in racing history. I'll just give you one. Yesterday, happy anniversary to my friend and Hall of Fame jockey Chris McCarron. Yesterday was the anniversary, April 28th, 2001, of Chris becoming the 7th American jockey to win 7,000 races when he guided Spineless Jellyfish to a neck victory in the Khaled Stakes at Hollywood Park. Well done, Chris. All right, 2 hours down, 1 to go. When I come back, I'm going to kick off Hour 3 with this week's edition of the Twin Spires Triple Play. James Scully going to join me to share his thoughts on a few races you'll want to keep an eye on later today. 10:20, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly stroll through racing history. And at 10:30, I once again welcome trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. If your local station is leaving us at this time, you can continue listening to the third hour of the program nationwide on Sirius 216, XM 204, and the Louisville, Kentucky market on ESPN 680, or on your computer, your phone, or tablet at horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 of the Equine Forum is coming up next, right after I pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Here comes Birdtown on the outside, and Elwell fights back on the rail. Birdtown with Elwell. Here comes Yell with a late run. It's Birdtown beginning to draw away. It's going to be Birdtown as they come to the finish. Birdtown upsets in the Oaks. It's Birdtown takes it by 5.
Empire Maker is giving it all. Funny side trying to pull up. The upset here. 12-1 coming down to the line. And the gutsy gelding Funny side has won the 129th Kentucky Derby.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires.
They're coming down to the finish. Chapel Royal. Action this day on the outside. Now in front. Minister Eric second, and they're coming down to the finish. And it's going to be action this day from way out of it. Wins the battle of attrition that was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile this year. They're coming into the final furlong, and it's going to be Mineshaft. Mineshaft, routinely brilliant to win here at Belmont Park once again. He has won the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and he has done it with style. And pleasantly perfect, trying to mow them down with 100 yards to go. They're down there on the outside, and they're coming down to the finish, and it is pleasantly perfect. Man, oh man, what a day. Pleasantly perfect wins by 2.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Man, oh Mandela, what a day. Some of the top sounds from some of the top moments of 2003, 20 years ago. Welcome back. Hour number 3 of the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, happy to have you back with me. And if you're just joining me, it was 20 years ago this month that I began my radio career, so figured we'd celebrate by looking back on some of the top moments of that year 20 years ago, and there were so many good ones. I mean, action this day. Mineshaft went on to be voted Horse of the Year, and you think about Pleasantly Perfect in that unbelievable Breeders' Cup for Richard Mandela. Of course, Funny Side, the gutsy gelding winning the Derby, and Birdtown for Nick Zito in the Kentucky Oaks. Those were just some of the great moments. There were so many others, but only had about a minute for the Open, so we couldn't take too much time there. And I don't want to take too much time away from this third hour either, because I'm going to kick it off with the Twin Spires Triple Play. James Scully going to join me from Twin Spires in just a moment. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History coming your way at 10:20. And at 10:30, Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin will be here for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. That's at 10:30. Without further ado, we begin Hour 3, as we always do, with this week's edition of the Twin Spires Triple Play. And as I mentioned, James Scully is here. We are 1 week away from the Run for the Roses, and going to be a great couple of days of betting at Churchill Downs. Several days, actually, coming up this week. And today is the day that Churchill opens. They'll open tonight with the first post right around 6 Eastern, and it's going to be a fantastic night. And, James, I know you're pumped up for that.
I am. Hello, Mike. Thanks for having me on. And you're right. The racing gets started this evening. Got a Downs After Dark card. Have a stakes race, real quality filly, Frank's Rocket running. It'll be the big favorite in there for Bill Mott and Frank Fletcher. And we've got, got some good fields. We saw Turfway's racing has really improved its product the last couple of years, and I thought that the improved racing at Turfway translated to better racing at Keeneland this spring, big competitive fields, and we're certainly going to see that this first week of racing here at Churchill Downs. Can't wait for we'll be racing today, Tuesday through Saturday, but of course Derby on Thursday, Oaks Day Friday, and Kentucky Derby Day Saturday are going to be absolutely stake-packed with some really good horses and some competitive races for bettors.
Yeah, and this won't be the only time that our listeners are going to hear from you throughout Derby week. You'll be with Bobby and Jude on our Derby Countdown show, either Tuesday or Wednesday morning. We'll coordinate the details there and get a chance to hear your thoughts on some of the top contenders. And those shows, by the way, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning coming up this week. And you're also going to be with them on the Brisnet.com call-in show on Thursday. So there's going to be a lot of James Scully coming up over the course of the next week or so.
Yeah, the Brisnet call-in show on Derby Week Thursday. That's the best show of the year. It's our listeners' opportunity to call in, give their top 3 picks for the Derby and a Kentucky Oaks selection, ask any last-second questions for Bobby Neuman or myself. Be really exciting. I'll be on the work show on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 7 to 8, available on TwinSpires and all the social channels, and then working the broadcast team with Joe Christopher, Scott Shapiro, and Caitlin Free at Churchill on Derby, Oaks Day, and Derby Day.
Yeah, and people have been feverishly trying to write down all of this information as we're throwing all of these different shows out there to get them ready for the Run for the Roses. And, by the way, the Kentucky Oaks as well. Let's not forget about the ladies. Here's what you do. Go to our website, horseracingradio.net, to see a complete Derby Week schedule. Go to TwinSpires.com to see their schedule and to bet all of the races, including the 3 we're going to talk about here today. And go to Brisnet.com to download all of the handicapping information that you need. James, let's kick it off with the first of 3 races that you have chosen for this week's Triple Play. It is Race 7 at Oaklawn later this afternoon. Post time 4:42 Eastern, which would be 3:42 local time in Hot Springs. It is a 6-furlong sprint, starter allowance in a field of 10 set to go. How'd you see this one?
I saw this race. I thought that the in this field, the morning on favorites were a little bit vulnerable in here. I thought both number 9 Betchin and number 5 Dream Streak, who are the 2 top choices on the morning line, should guarantee a good pace. And the other short price horse, number 1 Legendary Gift, really just got a perfect inside trip last time from a middle post. So I'm not sure he'll get that same trip from the rail. I landed on number 2 Jammin' JL. And this is a gelding that a mare that had been running at ran it in Southern California last year, went and ran twice at Turf Paradise, recorded a win in the next second, and then shipped to Oaklawn. We see these horses come in from Diodoro and other trainers from Turf Paradise with mixed results at Oaklawn Park we've seen in the past. But Jim and JL really ran a good race, Mike. He broke from post 12, hustled forward, went way wide in the turn, and finished with interest to be third that day. Like I said, the winner got a perfect trip up the rail, and Jerry Hollendorfer claimed Jammin' JL out of that start. Hollendorfer over last year and this year isn't winning at the same rate he used to in the past when he was in Northern California and even Southern California, 17%. But the one category he still excels at from like his last 70 horses that first off the claim, he is winning at a 26% clip. He gets Christian Torres, who rode Jammin' JL aggressively last time, should give a aggressive ride today. I mean, Torres has been riding so well at Oaklawn Park, Mike. He was 9 wins up on Arietta. It's going to lock up the title in this final week of racing in Hot Springs. And he's going to put Jammin' JL in a good spot after a wide trip last time, really well drawn in post 2. And I'm going to look for this mare, Jammin' JL, to move forward off of that very encouraging effort last time and prove best in race 7 at Oaklawn today.
Yep, and you're going to get rewarded with good value. 6-1 on the morning line for James's top pick, Jammin' JL, in race 7 at Oaklawn. James, before I get to the next two, I want to ask you to take us inside your thought process on looking at the conditions in a race like this. I think sometimes handicappers can look at these starter allowance races and they say, okay, from a class level standpoint, what am I looking at here? Because there's horses that have competed in allowance races. There's horses that have come out of claiming races. It can be a bit confusing. So when you sit down and start looking at a starter allowance race such as this, how do you decipher the different class levels and who fits and who doesn't?
Well, one thing is for certain for that question is I'm looking at horses that have been competing at the track first and foremost. It's going to be a little tricky with Jammin' JL when she was invading on that day on last 14 days ago for her first start at Oaklawn, because you are gauging like a pair of races at Turf Paradise. But both of those races were like allowance events. And so, they had better fields for the level. And I'm utilizing the Brisnet Ultimate Pass Performances, so I'm taking a gauge at both the race rating and class rating in these fields. It's not a perfect, science for, gauging class levels, but it's a great starting point, and then allows you to do a little bit more in-depth look at just like how fast they were running speed-wise, number, and any other performance numbers you're looking at. Going to use those a little bit to gauge class levels in that sense, Mike.
Okay, the next two legs of the Twin Spires triple play you've chosen for our listeners come from Churchill Downs, and you're going to start tonight with race number 2, which has a post time of 6:28 Eastern. It is a 7-furlong sprint on the main track, a field of 8, and we have a really well-balanced field, at least in terms of what the morning line looks like. So who's the value play in here?
Well, the value play in here, Mike, is going to be number 6, Gormley's Got Game. And the reason why, this is a race, like you said, it's really well matched. It's not the strongest field for the level. We only have one of these horses exiting a win, and that horse beat $8,000 claimers last time. And the morning line favorite in this race, it was really had good form in the past, Cove Blue, but came back off a lengthy layoff in late March, and I really did not like how he stopped that day badly on the front end. So I'm going to try to beat him with number 6, Gormley's Got Game. And the reason why I like this gelding is because he's a horse, Mike, that in 2 consecutive starts before his last had tough inside trips at Fairgrounds. Broke from the rail both those times, didn't have the best of trips, finished second one time. The connection, he ran last year at Churchill Downs twice. He ran on September 23rd in a $20,000 claiming race, ran a really good next second, stalking up close to the pace, and then came back in mid-November and ran third that day to Kate David, who came right back in his next start at Oaklawn and won an entry-level allowance and is a good horse. That was a really good field in mid-November at the $30,000 level. Like I said, he went to Fairgrounds. He ran a good second in his first race, got DQ, but it still was right there at the wire, and then had those inside trips that, muddied his form. In his last race, they dropped him down for 10. He got off to a terrible start, got bumped around at the beginning, and wound up being claimed. But I like the freshening for this horse. I like his form at the track, and I like how he's drawn outside Gormley's Got Game with tactical speed. I think he's going to sit a good trip with David Cohen, and I'm giving him the edge, 10-1 on the morning line. I'm going to get some real value in race 2, and I'm going to take a chance on number 6, Gormley's Got Game.
James Scully not playing with the triple play this week. 6-1, 10-1 for his first 2 selections on the morning line. Let's turn our attention to the third and final leg. That is race 7 at Churchill Downs, a $120,000 maiden special weight event. 7 3-year-old fillies are going to go 1.25 miles on the Churchill main track. Same same distance as the Kentucky Derby 1 week later. These are 3-year-old ladies, not boys. But, James, I have to wonder if the winner of this race is an automatic buzz horse for the Kentucky Derby as the next filly to win that race. What do you think?
I'll tell you, this is a definitely you're always paying attention to these like main special weight races like this. The horsemen and connections want to win races on Saturdays. At Churchill, like the week before the Derby, a lot of people will be paying attention. But it's 1.25 miles distance, which is an odd distance, Mike. And one thing about this field, there's just no pace. There's no pace in it. There's very, very little speed. And the morning line favorites, number 3, Peak Popularity, and number 7, Corsini, are more deep closers, more of like deep closing types that I think are going to be hurt by the longer distance and their run style. And number 2, Medaglia Forever, is 8-1 on the morning line. I don't necessarily believe she's going to be that price. I think she could get bet down because her race 2 starts back going 1 mile and 1/16 at Gulfstream Park was really strong. She ran, really strong for, considering how she was bet down. Now, the final time was a little bit off, but she really ran a commendable effort considering her debut. She was on the front end that day. She ran a next second, and I think that was a really good race to move forward off of. Unfortunately, she went to the Bourbonnais Oaks, ran on the synthetic and didn't run a step that day. I'm not going to count that against her. I love the fact that she comes back here, gets Lee Saez. Lee Saez was the leading rider at Churchill Downs last fall, edged out Gaffleone. He rode great at Keeneland once again, so he's riding really well coming back to Churchill Downs. And I think he's going to put Medaglia Forever right on the lead and lead wire to wire in race 7.
All right, yeah, we'll see if she reverts back to that form from Gulfstream back on January 29th, and another solid value play at 8-1 on the morning line. So, James, let's just recap. In the 7th race at Oaklawn, the first leg of your choices for this week's triple play, you'll go with number 2, Jammin' JL, who is 6-1 on the morning line. The second race at Churchill, you'll take number 6, Gormley's Got Game, at 10-1. And in race 7 at Churchill, we'll wrap it up with number 2, Medaglia Forever, who is 8-1 on the morning line. So some great value plays, my friend.
Yes, for sure, Mike. And I just want to encourage anybody out there, TwinSpires.com. We have a promotion going on this evening. It's called Beat the Handicappers. We got $5,000 up for grabs. You got to make at least 4 $10 win bets on selected races. Joe Christopher, Scott Shapiro will be making picks. They'll put on Twitter before the races. And if you outpick them, you're going to get some free cash. So check it out at TwinSpires.com. You have to opt in to the Beat the Handicappers $5,000 competition this evening.
Yeah, cool stuff. Lots of great things happening at TwinSpires.com and Brisnet.com. And I'll encourage you to head over to TwinSpires.com to place your wagers on those 3 races that James just walked through for you here this week. James, I appreciate it, man. All the best throughout Derby week, and I'll look forward to seeing you when we get over there starting on Monday.
I'm excited for it, Mike. I'll talk to you then.
All right, pal. James Scully here with the Twin Spires Triple Play. Again, we'll make our way over there on Monday, get everything set up. Our Derby countdown shows begin Tuesday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning. You can join Bobby Neuman and Jude Feld to get you ready with interviews with horsemen, whether it be jockeys, trainers, owners, handicappers, everything you need to get ready for the Run for the Roses and the Run for the Lilies as well on Friday with the Kentucky Oaks. It's going to be a tremendous week of thoroughbred racing, and we can't wait to be set up at Churchill and bring you all the action here on the Horse Racing Radio Network throughout the week. Quick programming note, if you're looking for those Derby countdown shows, you're going to have to switch over to Sirius 218 XM 202. Those are different channels than you're listening to right now. So Sirius 218 XM 202, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, the Derby Countdown presented by our friends at Hillendale at Alapa. All right, when I come back, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History, and then Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, getting ready to join me at 10:30 for this week's I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires on HRRN.
Race the Twin Spires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twin Spires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twin Spires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The spring meet returns to Churchill Downs now through July 3rd with 50 stakes races worth over $20 million during the spring meet. Racing doesn't end once Derby week is over, as there is plenty of racing action throughout the meet, with maiden special weight races of $120,000 and allowance races ranging from $127,000 to $148,000. For more racing information and to get your tickets today, visit ChurchillDowns.com. Churchill Downs purses are powered by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
And then Frost Point, who goes to fourth into the final furlong of the Bear Double Dog Dare. Hidden Connection, green up. Frost Point is running late from the outside, but it's Hidden Connection in front. Frost Point, yes, for Flavian Pratt in the Baird Double Dog Dare.
Frost Point, the daughter of Darley Stallion Frosted, recorded her second consecutive stakes win with that powerful last to first move in Keeneland's Grade 3 Double Dog Dare. A victory that makes her your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion Frosted. Frost Point is one of 6 greatest stakes horses for Frosted this year. You have to go to a stud fee of $200,000 to find a stallion that's sired more. Frosted stands for a fee of $10,000 live foal. Learn more about Frosted and all the Darley Stallions by visiting DarleyAmerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He was foaled and raised about 30 miles from Churchill Downs, and in 1953, he pulled one of the most shocking upsets in Kentucky Derby history. His name was Dark Star. Foaled on April 4th, 1950, Dark Star was born at the Hermitage Farm of breeder Warner L. Jones in Goshen, Kentucky. He was from the first crop by the Hermitage stallion Royal Gem, an imported superstar from Australia, while the colt's second dam, Fiji, had won the Kentucky Oaks in 1934. A sleek brown colt with a handsome head, Dark Star sold for $6,500 at the Keeneland Summer Yearling Sales to philanthropist and copper magnate Harry Guggenheim. It was Guggenheim who gave the colt the name Dark Star, but for no particular reason. Guggenheim had submitted several other names which had been rejected by the Jockey Club registry, and he just wanted to put a name on the horse and be done with it. Sent to trainer Moody Jolly and plagued with ankle and shin issues as a juvenile, Dark Star made his debut in the name of Guggenheim's Kane Hoy stable, carrying the stable's familiar blue and white colors at Hialeah Park in Miami in February of 1952. And he returned on closing day of the Hialeah meet to win the Hialeah Juvenile over 18 foes before a crowd of 18,000. But a colt named Native Dancer, a homebred for owner Alfred Gwen Vanderbilt, was also a 2-year-old in 1952, and he would beat Dark Star by 6 lengths in the futurity at Belmont Park while breaking a world record. Finishing the year unbeaten, Native Dancer would be named Horse of the Year by both the Thoroughbred Racing Association and Turf and Sport Digest. Keep in mind, this was an era prior to the formation of the Eclipse Awards. Native Dancer had become such a superstar that many had already conceded him the Kentucky Derby for 1953. So popular was Native Dancer that NBC Television and ABC Radio provided live coverage of his victory in the Gotham Stakes from New York, a race which was run just 2 weeks before the Run for the Roses. By comparison, Dark Star had experienced a sluggish start to the 1953 campaign. He had been transferred to the barn of trainer Eddie Hayward, a native of Brigden, Ontario. With a simple set of instructions came that transfer, as Guggenheim told Hayward, quote, "Train this horse, win the Derby," end quote. Simple instructions, but a tall order. On March 21st, Dark Star finished 13th behind Money Broker in the Florida Derby. Hayward took the blame, saying he did not have him ready to run. Arriving at Churchill Downs 5 weeks later, though, Dark Star had improved, even beating Money Broker in the Derby trial by 4 lengths under jockey Henry Moreno. On entry day, Dark Star was the last of a dozen horses entered for the Derby. He had lost 3 of his 4 starts on the year and was installed as 5th choice at 8-1 on the morning line. Native Dancer, 2 for 2 on the campaign, 11 for 11 lifetime, was made the 3-5 favorite. Of 51 sports writers covering the event, not one chose Dark Star as his top selection. On Saturday, May 2nd, 1953, the Churchill Downs starter sprung the latch and sent the field on its way in the 79th running of the Kentucky Derby. Moreno sent Dark Star to the front as the field passed the stands the first time, and while he was winging on the lead, Native Dancer was stuck in traffic. The Dancer finally came running late, but it was too late. Dark Star won the Derby by a head, handing Native Dancer what would be the only loss of his career. A national television audience, the first ever in the history of the Kentucky Derby, sat in stunned silence while watching on NBC. Dark Star had won at odds of 24-1 and paid $51.80, the 4th largest price in Derby history. Native Dancer at 3-5 had lost as the 2nd shortest priced Derby favorite of all time. One sports writer said the betting public had shed enough tears to fill the Ohio River to flood stage. Native Dancer would go on to win the Preakness and Belmont and would repeat as Horse of the Year. Dark Star would injure a tendon in the Preakness and finish 5th, with his retirement from racing announced a short time thereafter. Dark Star stood 7 seasons at stud at Claiborne Farm in Paris, Kentucky, and 7 more at Spendthrift in Lexington before being exported to France for stallion duty in the mid-1960s. He died in France on October 21, 1972, at the age of 22. Dark Star was one of 4 Kentucky Derby winners to die that year, the others being Middle Ground, Determine, and Swaps. When Dark Star won the Derby some 70 years ago at a huge price, reporters asked Guggenheim if he had placed a wager on the horse. Guggenheim, described as a quiet, dignified man, replied no, adding that wagering tended to damage one's perception of horse, trainer, and jockey. He was a sportsman of the finest order. We remember Guggenheim's famous racehorse, Dark Star, forever in the history books as the only horse ever to defeat the great Native Dancer. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires on HRRN.
Race to Twin Spires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twin Spires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twin Spires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
This Healthy Horse Tip is brought to you by Kessmark. Ice or cold therapy is no stranger to any serious human athlete before, during, and after training or competition. Using a cold saltwater spa with sea and Epsom salt can help to reduce inflammation and increases circulation, which helps acute and chronic micro-injuries to resolve with regular use. This treatment also aids in keeping horses sound and healthy. Horses love the cold water spa. If a horse has a serious injury, cold therapy won't diminish that injury, but it will help with inflammation and better healing. For more healthy horse tips, visit Kessmark.com or follow them on Twitter at Kessmark_equine. That's KESMARC_equine.
Racing at Gulfstream. There's plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the Royal Palm Meet, with live racing Thursday through Sunday and simulcast every day. It's spring season in South Florida and time to witness exceptional racing. Watch the action from Carousel Club or feast in 10 Palms with an elevated view of the track. For stake schedules, reservations, and tickets, visit GulfstreamPark.com. That's GulfstreamPark.com.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Scholarships are available. Visit rtip.arizona.edu.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
Angel of Empire's really taken off. I'm really happy with the way he's trained. If you'd asked me back in November or December, thought he was a Derby horse, I would say, probably needs to do more. But guess what? He did do more, and he got better the further he went. So, but once again, based off his physical, we always knew he's a horse that would love 2 turns and likes the 1 1/8. He's been able to win twice at the distance, and another one that should like the 1 1/4 for sure.
You know, what I love about all of our horses coming in is, you know, they seem to have a knack for finding the finish line in front, and, you know, they've got winning records that, you know, support our confidence in them.
Well, assuming things stay as they are, trainers Brad Cox and Todd Pletcher, whom you just heard from, are going to saddle 7 of the 20 Kentucky Derby starters next Saturday. But which horse not trained by Cox or Pletcher is most likely to find themselves in the winner's circle? And jockey Javier Castellano has selected Mage as his Derby mount. We'll tell you if the Hall of Famer made the right call. Plus, if you could go back in time and choose one jockey who is no longer active to ride your horse in the Kentucky Derby, who are you picking? We're going to talk about those topics and much, much more on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf rider Tim Wilkin, all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business, and all starting just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
A lot of things to get to on this week's show. We're going to dive in to the topic regarding Javier Castellano, who announced this past week that he will ride Mage in this year's Kentucky Derby. Castellano was expected to be aboard Gotham winner Race Kane, but has instead chosen Mage. Castellano has never won the Kentucky Derby. His best finish from 15 tries came aboard Audible in 2018, who finished 3rd. Dale, I'll start with you. Do you like Castellano's decision?
I like the horse. I mean, he ran a good race in the Florida Derby. I just think it's going to be difficult. 20 horses, 1 1/4, 4th start of your life. It's been tried by some good horses like Curlin, and it hadn't been done. So I think the horse is up against it. But there's a backstory rumor to that whole thing that there was a sponsorship problem, is why he took off the other horse and ended up back on this one. He's sponsored by Jeff Ruby's, and they wanted to do a different sponsorship, and he couldn't do it on his pants. So then I don't know what the true facts are. I just hear rumors, but I heard that they wanted Jeff Ruby's to have to pay them for him to ride Raising Cane, and they couldn't work it out, and he jumped ship.
Interesting. The plot thickens.
I thought that was pretty interesting. I never heard of that for a Kentucky Derby mount, that a sponsorship would get in the way of helping you choose which horse you're going to ride. But you're probably flipping a coin between the two on odds and talent, and probably the one he's on is the most talented of the two out right now, I would say.
Yeah, Race Kane has more experience, but
he has more experience, so you're probably flipping a coin. But I just thought it was an interesting story. Like I said, don't know it's true. It's all rumor, hearsay, but it comes from good sources.
It could be. The plot thickens regarding Javier Castellano. Timmy, what say you? You like the call by Javier?
Well, first of all, Dale Romans has to become the investigative reporter down there on the backstretch since I'm not there. He's got to go out there and with his pen and his pencil and his tape recorder and get the scoop on this. Can you do that, Dale?
I'll get it. I'll get to. Hey, by the time we talk next week, we'll know for sure.
Okay. I think that Javier. I mean, if you're just going by the horses, I think it's the right decision. Even though you can punch holes in both of them. I mean, Mage is, 3 career starts. He didn't race as a 2-year-old, and he'd have to beat the curse of Apollo, in 1882, the last one that did it before Justified did. He did improve greatly in the Florida Derby when he was second. And he looked like he was going to be the winner. Ended up finishing the length behind Forte. And he has the potential to improve in this start, but maybe his best race will be 2 starts from now. He won't be on my tickets, but I think that Raise Cane definitely wouldn't be on my tickets. After that 5th in the Bluegrass, he was never a factor in that race. He won the Gotham by daylight on the muddy track. I think Javier is, he's looking for the best possible horse that he can win the Kentucky Derby with, and if it's between those two, I think it's got to be Mage. But it remains to be seen if the controversy erupts and Scoop Romans can get the story. We'll all know it.
You know what's interesting to me? You look at Javier's record, and he's a great rider and a good friend, and we did something special together. But you look at his record in the Derby, and you wouldn't think he would win 6 Travers. He wasn't on any good horses, good 3-year-olds in the spring, but by summer he's picked up the best 3-year-old in the country and has won 6 Travers.
He's also got a dozen Breeders' Cup wins.
Yeah, I just think I think that's very interesting. You would think with winning 6 Travers, you would have been on a few Derby winners that made it to the Travers and won, but he's nowhere. He doesn't have a good 3-year-old in spring, but by the summer he's always on the best horse.
Dale, let me ask you one follow-up question here. We talk about the number of starts that Mage has coming into the Derby, and this will only be 4 starts for him lifetime. Raise Cane, much like your horse who's on the outside looking in, Cyclone Mischief, has 7 lifetime starts. How important is that foundation when you come into a 1.25-mile test against 20 other horses on the first Saturday in May?
Well, it's been proven out over history. It's pretty important, I believe, and it's it's just a tough task to go that far against these type of horses. You're going to have to overcome some adversity. You haven't had that much experience, but I mean, I like that horse. I think that he'll be a real one of the tops in the class by the time we get to Travers. I was just thinking, it might be another one of these horses that doesn't run good in the Derby, but by Travers he's got the experience and gives it Javier his 7th Derby or Travers win.
Yeah, that's a great point. You would think that if he's winning that many Travers, he'd be on top 3-year-olds in the Kentucky Derby too. It just hasn't panned out yet. Maybe this is the year he makes the right call and Mage gets to the wire first, and Javier gets the first Kentucky Derby. It certainly would seem fitting. Javier Castellano deserves a Kentucky Derby with the number of great rides he's put on horses and the number of victories he's had in his career. That's one thing that's missing from that resume. And, boy, you have to think that it's going to happen at some point, right?
You would sure think so. You're right. He deserves it as much as any jockey ever threw the legs over a horse. He's a good man, a good rider, and a good ambassador for the game.
And, the other thing, too, is that there's a lot of really, really good riders that haven't had great success in the Derby. I mean, Pat Day only won it once. Lafitte Pinkai once. Mike Smith, who has the most mounts of anyone in Derby history with 28, he won it twice. But, it just shows you how difficult of a race this is to win. I mean, there's no jockey of our times that has dominated this race. And, I'm sure it's frustrating for Javier and all the other riders that don't have great success in this race, but they have great success other places, other races. Just shows you how difficult this Derby is to win.
It's very elusive. It's funny, though. You talk about nobody dominated. If someone was dominating in the last 20 years, it would have been Calvin Burrell. Now, who would have picked him? He's a great rider and another good friend, but who would have thought he would be the most dominant Derby jockey?
No one.
Right.
No one would have thought that.
Yeah, it's a funny game. Certainly a funny game, and it's a race like no other, the Kentucky Derby, and we'll see if Javier's number comes up this year. All right, topic number 2. Let's go to the trainers, because assuming that all things stay on track between now and next Saturday, Todd Pletcher and Brad Cox are going to saddle 7 of the 20 Kentucky Derby starters. Which horse, guys, not named or not trained by Pletcher or Cox is most likely to find themselves draped in the garland of roses? Timmy, why don't you take it first?
I've been looking at this, and I've come up with possibly 4 that could upset the Pletcher-Cox train to the Derby. And Practical Move, I think you have to put him in there. I mean, he's got the highest, I believe he's got the highest equibase speed figure at 108. The Santa Anita Derby was a struggle for him. He did win it, but I think you'd have to put him in there. And Dale, don't give me a hard time because he's a former Baffert horse, but Reincarnate, he could be dangerous on the lead with John Velasquez. I'm also going to give a slight nod to Derma Sotagaki, the Japanese horse, even though he's going to have to, beat the UAE Derby jinx. And 0 for 18, the horses are that come out of that race. And I've always never been a fan of that race coming into the Derby. But the way the Japanese are going, I think he deserves a major look. And Skinner, who just got in, unfortunately through the after Wild on Ice was euthanized, he, even though he's only got 1 win on his resume in 6 starts, I think he's got a chance to be a factor in this race. I don't know if he's necessarily going to win it, but I think he's going to be a factor late.
All right, I'm going to cross all 4 of those horses off my list, Timmy.
Good. That's a wise decision.
Dale, what do you think?
That's the let it ride method of handicapping. Those are all good choices. I tell you, I've been watching them all train, and I've got a live long shot. I think the greatest trainer, one of the greatest trainers in my era, is Billy Mott, and I think Rocket Can could be a horse that could upset the apple cart. I've been talking to Bill a little bit, and we talked a lot yesterday, and he seems very excited about this horse. He's been here for a week. He's staying the whole time, and he's out there on the pony with him every morning. I could just tell he's got a little pep in his step, like he likes this horse, and I like the way he's been training.
It's interesting, Dale. I loved him in the Arkansas Derby after his runner-up to Forte in the Fountain of Youth. He ended up finishing 4th that day. Not terrible, but not great either. I thought he was going to win that race. He was the beaten favorite. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was just a ship to Oaklawn. But if he takes to Churchill the way he's taken to it in the past, I kind of agree. I think he's a sneaky play.
I would worry about that also if it wasn't for the excitement I feel Bill putting out. And there's a difficult place to ship in. I think he in hindsight, he probably would have he should have just stayed and run against Forte in the Florida Derby. But I think he was trying to duck Forte and went over there. It's hard to travel these days. We don't have Tech Sutton plane anymore. You have to FedEx around our van, and that's a tough racetrack to run over. And so I want to draw a line through it and think that if one of those other trainers don't do any good, Billy could jump up and win the thing.
He certainly knows how to win a big race. We'll see if Bill Mott can add another Derby win to his resume. All right, time now for this week's edition of Right or Wrong. We say hello to our good friend, Nick Zito.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
Guys, just one topic for Right or Wrong this week, and then we're going to move on to a couple of other fun segments to wrap up the show. But since 2003, the shortest price Kentucky Derby favorite, excluding the COVID year of 2020, was Nyquist at $2.30 to 1 in 2016. So if I were to tell you that Forte will be an even shorter price favorite when he goes to the post on Saturday, would I be right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right?
Dale?
Wrong. I think that he's been pretty dominant, but I think that the wise guys will not bet on him because he doesn't have the fastest speed figures. I don't think he'll be as short a price as people think. I think he'll be the favorite, but I think he'll still have a little meat on the bone.
I'm going to go wrong on that, too. Yeah, Forte's been impressive, but I'm sure that there's going to be people that are going to, he was impressive, but in the Florida Derby, but he wasn't, he didn't dominate it. He ran a very impressive race. He looked beaten at the 8th pole, but he didn't draw. I mean, he did kind of draw off to win by a length. But I think people are going to hold that against him. And the only thing that might put him over the top and change the odds, it all depends on the Mattress Mac factor. He's supposedly going to bet $1.5 million on Forte, and that he did that with Epicenter last year, and his odds sank like a balloon. Went from 5-1 to 9-2. So, but I think that there's going to, because Angel of Empire is getting a lot of traction. I mean, Tapit Trice is getting traction. It's not going to be a Forte real short price here. I think he'll be the favorite, but I don't know if he's going to be a dominant favorite.
All right, so Dale and Tim both saying over $2.30 to 1 for Forte next Saturday when the gates open for the run for the Roses. We'll do Right or Wrong again next week. Have a couple more topics with our friend Nick Zito, but let's move on to this one. Tomorrow marks the 82-year anniversary of jockey Eddie Arcaro riding 4 winners from 5 mounts at Jamaica Racetrack before leaving to ride Whirlaway in the Kentucky Derby. It is also the 34-year anniversary of Bill Shoemaker recording his 1,000th career stakes win. So, Tim, I'll come to you first. If you could go back in time and you could pick one jockey to ride your horse in the Kentucky Derby, who are you choosing?
Now, this is with just Kentucky Derby. We're not talking about careers. This is just Kentucky Derby, correct?
Yep, and it can be any jockey not active currently.
You can't go wrong with Eddie Arcaro, of course. He just 5 Derby wins, won 2 Triple Crowns. The only guy that's done that. Bill Shoemaker is in his day was a dominant rider, won this race 4 times, and he was the oldest guy that ever did it when he did it with Ferdinand, I believe. Or was Mike Smith older? I think Shoe might have been.
I think Shoe was
But I'm
older.
going to go with Bill Hartack. He won this race 5 times. And the way and 3 of the wins that he had in the Derby were neck, nose in the 60s. So Bill Hartack knew how to get to the finish line. I never saw him ride live, but boy, from everything I've seen and read about him, he was a guy that he got the job done in the Kentucky Derby. So for me, I'll take Bill Hartack all day.
There's nothing wrong with that choice, but I can't take it. I'll tell you the reason in a minute. But you think back of Isaac Murphy and you think about Eddie Arcaro, they're like Babe Ruth. You know how much you'd have to do in a sporting career for them still be comparing you to the greats 100 years after your pick prime? It's incredible. And Hartack, yes, he was a man made for this race. But when I was a kid, first year training in New Orleans, I walked in the steward's office. He was a steward, and I had my hat on. He started yelling at me, "Take your hat off." Talked down to me like a dog. I didn't like it. And it's the only time I ever talked to him in my life. So I was leaving the room, and I turned around and I said, "By the way, didn't you used to ride?" And he chased me out of the office. So I'm not taking Hartack for that reason. And all those guys are great in history, but I'm going to take one for 30-something and take my chances on him becoming 2 for 30-something and take my man Pat Day.
I knew you were going to pick Pat Day. Just like Timmy would
Anytime
pick
you ask me
Baffert.
about anything about a jockey, it will be Pat Day. You don't even have to ask me.
So Bill Hartack in a 30-second span ruined it for you.
Yeah, he aggravated me, yelling at me. Him and Steve Martin had a fight with in Las Vegas, and I refused to watch any Steve Martin shows either.
You had a fight with
You
Steve
know what?
Martin?
Yeah, no, I got a fight with him in an elevator in Vegas. That's a long story, but I was flipping through the channels one night. One of my old favorite shows of all time is The Jerk, and I hit there for a second. I said, "Damn, Tammy, I wish I could watch it." And I kept flipping, and she looked at me. She said, "I'm going to bet he's over it."
Well, you got to tell the story now.
Nah, that's next week.
We'll hold
It's a
you to
long
that.
story.
We're going to save that one for next week. I'll build in more time to the show. We got to hear
All right.
about that. That's a little what they call in the radio business a tease for next
That's
week's
a
show.
tease, right.
We're going to hold on to that one. By the way, if you're wondering about the best winning percentage, I'd have to say Bill Hartack takes the cake. 12 mounts in the Derby,
and he won with 5 of those. Eddie Arcaro also won 5, but he had 21 tries at it in the Run for the Roses. So Bill Hartack, the king of the castle in that respect. All right, next topic, and then we'll get to who are you taking with and then the West Point of the Week. But if you were going to take the following Kentucky Derby winners who are celebrating their 5-year or 10-year anniversaries here in 2023, and you were going to put all of these horses into the starting gate together to compete at 1.25 miles at Churchill Downs, which horse would be favored and which horse would win? And I'll give you these choices. You can put Justify in there, Orb will be in there, Big Brown, Funny Side, Real Quiet, Sea Hero, Winning Colors, and Sonny's Halo. Which of those is going to be favored in that race, and which horse is going to win it? Dale?
Well, I think the favorite's going to be Baffert's horse that won the Triple Crown.
Justified.
I'm brain locked here. But I would bet my money on Big Brown. Big Brown was a special horse, and the way he dominated that field out of the 20 hole that year was amazing, I thought. And, Dutcho's my good friend, and we've talked about him a lot. You ought to hear the excitement in his voice when he talks about the talent that Big Brown had. And he had Triple Crown talent. He just had a bad foot when he ran the Belmont. I don't care what anybody says. He had a foot bothering him, and that cost him a Triple Crown. But he was an awfully talented horse, and he would get my money in that lineup.
Great minds think alike, even though now I'm going to have to change it because can't do the same ones. I do think Justify would be the favorite because, heck, he won the Triple Crown. I loved Big Brown. He won his Derby by 4 3/4 lengths, and he was just not a freak, but a very talented horse that in his time, in that his Triple Crown time, his Triple Crown season, he was a horse that nobody wanted a piece of. And I think he would be very tough in here. But since Dale picked Big Brown, I can't pick the same horse. So on the fly, I might go off on a tangent here and pick Winning Colors to go gate to wire.
Wow. The filly wins again.
The filly.
Wow. Yeah,
I'm not
that
going
would
to argue that because the master could do it, Wayne Lucas.
That would be one heck of a field if you were to get all of those horses together. And it's fun to talk about, obviously. We know it's never going to happen, but it'd be fun to talk about. And all of those horses celebrating either a 5-year or 10-year anniversary here in 2023 since their Kentucky Derby victory. All right, just a few minutes left in the show, guys, so let's have a couple of quick who you taking topics. And this is a head-to-head matchup in Friday's Kentucky Oaks. I want to make sure we give the ladies some love. So in a head-to-head matchup in Friday's Kentucky Oaks, I took the top 6 horses in the point standing. So we'll run through these very quickly. Number 1, Wet Paint, winner of the Fantasy at Oaklawn, versus number 2, Affirmative Lady, who won the Gulfstream Park Oaks. Who you taking in the Kentucky Oaks to finish ahead of the other one? Timmy?
Wet Paint will be the favorite in this race. Unbeaten in all 4 of her dirt starts. She's proven that she can win on fast track as well as an off track. I think she'd be very, very, very tough in this race.
Wet Paint looks beautiful training out there, better than the rest of them, and I'll take Wet Paint.
All right, Wet Paint finishing in front of Affirmative Lady. Okay, number 3 in the point standings is Defining Purpose, the upset winner of the Ashland at Keeneland, versus number 4, Pretty Mischievous, runner-up in the Fairgrounds Oaks last time out. Dale, who are you taking?
Pretty Mischievous. I think the other filly one else about is like the Bay City Rollers, one-hit wonder.
The Ashland.
The Ashland, right.
Yep. Timmy?
Pretty Mischievous. I got to go with that one as well. I think she'll rebound after the Fairground Oaks. And Defining Purpose, 20-1 winner, the Ashland. Lightning's not going to strike twice.
All right, one more matchup. Number 5, South Lawn, the winner of the Fairgrounds Oaks, versus number 6, Promise Her America, who scored in the Gazelle at Aqueduct. Timmy, who are you taking?
Taking South Lawn. Went last to first in the short field in the Fairground Oaks. The other one, 26-1 winning the Gazelle. No thanks, not for me.
I agree with Timmy. I didn't do enough research to make an educated answer here, so I want to agree with Timmy. And I want to go on record saying I don't like this segment. Anybody out there agrees with me, please email and get it removed.
Well, there you go.
Why don't you like it?
Well, because I don't care about these horses and races. I want to talk about big picture and in general things going on in the world.
Kentucky Oaks is a big picture race.
Yeah, it's all right. It's on a Friday. How many big races on a Friday?
Hey, wait a minute. Now, I do have to step in here as judge and jury of this program. We did make a change to the showdown and the scoring methods in terms of being able to draft another horse when one of your horses gets hurt. We made that change about midway through. So I think Dale will take this under consideration. And, I might have to make this call and change this up.
What would you change it to?
Let's see what the listeners say.
All right.
Well, what could you change it to?
Let us know. You can hit us up on Twitter at HRRN, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. You can email the show, Mike at horseracingradio.net. I don't know, Timmy. We'll come up with something.
We could take
maybe
this
Dale
time
Roman's favorite Steve Martin movies.
No, we could take this time we're wasting the listeners and talk about Bob Baffert.
Timmy's in.
Yeah, I knew Timmy liked that.
All right,
and
very
Dale
quickly.
can talk about Pat Day.
I will. You're right, 100%. At least I'll admit it.
Coming down to the wire in this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. Quick update with the showdown. Dale did not get any points last week, would charge it in the Oaklawn handicap, so the score remains Dale 31, Tim 27. We'll tell you all about next week's scoring because it's going to be fast and furious. Both of them going to be well represented coming up next Saturday. All right, it is time now to wrap up the program with the West Point of the Week presented by West Point Thoroughbreds. And don't forget, you can experience the lifestyle of thoroughbred racehorse ownership with the gold standard in racing partnerships for over 30 years. It is West Point Thoroughbreds. Text HORSE to 66866 to learn about ownership, message, and data rates may apply. Timmy, why don't you take it first? What is your West Point of the Week?
I just want to say happy trails to trainer Jimmy Jerkins, who is heading off to Saudi Arabia to continue his excellent training career. He's been a New York mainstay since the late 90s, son of Hall of Famer Alan Jerkins. You always knew where you stood with Jimmy. He man, a few words, but a very, very good horse trainer. And I'm a little sad that I won't be seeing him on the backstretch anymore, at least for a while.
I had one I was going to say. I'll save it for next week because I want to talk about Jimmy, too. Jimmy's also a good friend. His father's one of my heroes and mentors in life. And, Jimmy, I'll see you back at Saratoga. You'll be back.
All right, there you have it. That is the West Point of the Week. Wrapping up this edition of I Ask, They Answer. Dale, Tim, enjoy the races this weekend. Dale, good luck. We'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, talk to you later.
Sounds great.
All right, if you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim debate, simply email that to me, Mike at horseracingradio.net, and I will work it in for you. This is I Ask, They Answer, presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'm back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed, Versailles, Kentucky.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with a crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment. Email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolatey candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Hey, this is Bobby Neuman. Join Jude Feld and me for our Derby Countdown shows Tuesday through Thursday of Kentucky Derby Week. We'll be broadcasting live from Churchill Downs as we speak with jockeys, trainers, owners, and handicappers, as well as bring you up-to-the-minute news leading up to Kentucky Derby 149. The Derby Countdown shows presented by Hillendale at Alapa, Tuesday through Thursday of Derby Week, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen live on Sirius 218, XM 202, or online at horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
Don't forget the May issue of Blood Horse Magazine features 146 pages that include all types of different Derby stories. It's going to be a fantastic read. You can download a copy of the May issue now from the Blood Horse Magazine tablet app via the App Store or Google Play, or subscribe today at bloodhorse.com/subscribe. Well, what a show. What do you think? Who are you taking? Dale hates it. Tim loves it. Which way do we go? Shoot me a note. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know your thoughts on the entire program. We certainly welcome those as well. You can do that, Mike, at horseracingradio.net. 1 week away from the Run for the Roses. Next week, a Derby edition of the program. You're going to hear all kinds of Derby talk. Of course, we got the Kentucky Oaks coming up, and we got all of our Derby coverage kicking off Tuesday morning with the Derby Countdown shows live from Churchill, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Check out the complete schedule on our website, horseracingradio.net. Don't forget to follow us on social media as well. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studio, to all of my guests for making this show possible here this morning, and to Chauncey for handling all of our social media. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Mike Penna. We got a tackle. Go Steelers.